All right, let's get into it. Welcome to Inside the Numbers, folks, with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris. We have a lot, actually, to talk about, but it's all mostly centered on Iowa and California. Later, David Giglio will join us for an update, all right, because today or this weekend will be a rules change. And, you know, man, and you know how it goes. These people do things and say things publicly, and they're so full of crap. It's not even funny. These people are so full of crap. It's really kind of disgusting if you think about it. It really is. All right. So with that in mind, while before we talk about the polling results, I got a lot more on the poll that I want to discuss. A lot more. And I got some new crosstabs after dealing with some BS and an updated map. And we'll dig deeper into the demographics. But let's put it all in context for a second. Okay. We'll go over a couple of stories before we get to the poll. Here's the first one from Politico. And then, of course, what is flailing about his campaign, that he needs these evangelicals to give him an extra boost, is something that's the content of other articles that came out earlier in the week. But I thought this was a biggie for this very same reason. And I think the polling results are a biggie. They're looking to a demographic. And tonight it was very, I guess, prescient that we did this poll today or this week and released it this week because of the evangelical. Look, for Patriots, use promo code TPP10. Use it on a big purchase for your first purchase only. Patriot Power Generator 2000X, baby. Anyway, there'll be time for that as well. They're going to have Bob Vanderplaat's forum. It does bring a lot of church leaders, even though maybe, as Politico will point out, how much power does some of these DeSantis supporting church leaders have over their rank and file congregations, considering the result of the Fox poll? And then we're going to talk about the results of our poll as well. All right. So let's read it, and then we'll get into two others and then go over poll results. All right. So DeSantis is hoping Iowa evangelicals can make his campaign born again. The Florida governor is scrambling to turn around a campaign beset by lagging poll numbers and increasing negative headlines. The Murdochs are, that we'll get into that more with the Rolling Stone article, which even the New York Post covered, which is owned by Murdoch. We'll get into that a little bit, but the New York Post, the Rolling Stone article came on top of Ken Griffin now, questioning whether or not he's going to continue to support DeSantis' campaign. So all of this is going on. So as Ron DeSantis loses believers in the Beltway, he finds faith among some Iowa evangelical leaders. The Florida governor and his super PAC have been feverishly working the religious circuit in the nation's first caucus state, trying to capitalize on Donald Trump's unleashing of vitriol against the state's Republican governor, Kim Reynolds. I do know that today several people will sit down with Kim Reynolds, and the funny thing about it is they're going to tell her that Ron DeSantis is a loser and that she should, if she wants to unite the party, should get behind Donald Trump. That is what Kim Reynolds is going to hear today. Kim Reynolds, people think that they can capitalize on this. This is very much the Jeff Rowe playbook. We saw it with Cruz in 2016. This is his playbook pretty much in a lot of places. Pretend you are the real conservative in the race and then try to squeeze out that support among evangelicals. The problem is what Jeff Rowe has done to some of these, Ted Cruz is a great example, is make them wholly unelectable in a general election or even in a Republican nomination in follow-up states, even if you were to squeeze out a win like Ted Cruz did. Now, remember, there's two very different things about 2016 than there was about now. Several big things, but one of them being Roe v. Wade is over. You can promise whatever you want. You can promise you're going to do this, promise you're going to do that. The Iowa caucuses for almost 40 years has been dominated by evangelicals who cared about Roe v. Wade. The rank and file told us very clearly, Donald Trump ended Roe v. Wade. Why the hell would I take a chance on somebody else? Do you believe these mailers? Everyone has gotten mailers. Everyone has gotten ads. The DeSantis campaign and his PAC have combined spent millions. I think Never Back Down alone has spent $5 million. And by the way, knocked on almost 200,000 doors, which we're going to get into in a second. This is not anything new. These attacks seem just like they're throwing you-know-what against the wall to see what will stick. They heard this. He's not a real conservative in 2016. And the truth is, Ted Cruz barely won. And he only won because of the dirty trick that the Rowe and his team pulled on Ben Carson, which was sending out messages. Dr. Ben Carson has dropped out of the race. His people are urging you to caucus for Ted Cruz. That got him the Iowa caucus. That's it. But that's when Donald Trump was leading by a few points, single digits. Ted Cruz outperformed by 7-8 points, depending on the poll. That's it. This is a very different deficit. So I don't think, and also too, again, I just don't think that Kim Reynolds has the clout. She doesn't. Terry Branstad didn't have the clout, and he was the longest serving Republican governor ever. Now DeSantis has his best chance yet to appeal to this influential voting base and try to rewrite his campaign's narrative amid lagging poll numbers and a barrage of increasingly negative headlines. On Friday, he will address the Family Leader, an influential Christian organization that draws a large crowd of conservative pastors. Quote, I really think America wants to turn the page, Bob Vander Plaats, CEO of the Family Leader, said in an interview. If you're looking for an alternative to Trump, I think Governor DeSantis is the front runner right now. As you will see in the polling that we did, DeSantis is the runner up, but he is way behind. He is 3 times further behind than Donald Trump than Tim Scott currently is behind of him. So he may not be by the time we get to the Iowa caucuses if this keeps up. Also, Bob Vander Plaats, the Trump campaign, is not participating despite Tucker being basically the the microphone of the event. He is not participating because Bob Vander Plaats has been a long time never Trumper, and I understand the point. I personally still would have just went and clobbered them all. Tucker's not a pushover. He's not going to roll over for Ron DeSantis. He will ask him, why would anybody take a chance on you when Trump ended Roe v. Wade? He will ask him, how many times do you plan on flip-flopping on Ukraine? Trump could simply just be there to just, continue to hit him with that on the head. For DeSantis, the pressure to find momentum anywhere is growing. This is true. And if I went on War Room with Steve Bannon earlier this morning before I went on, they played a clip of Fox News on the curvy couch, Fox and Friends. You had Ainsley, Ducey, and Brian having a meltdown. They don't know what to do because DeSantis is failing them. Maybe we should go to Glenn Youngkin. Chris Christie is surging too, and that should concern DeSantis. Maybe we should look at him. Mike Pence, what are you talking about? Vivek Ramaswamy has surpassed Mike Pence. They are desperate. And the DeSantis people are catching flack, including from Fox News and the Murdochs, who, as Bannon rightly pointed out, are not American, dude. They're not pro-American. They don't give a damn about America. Fox News, the real Fox News was Roger Ailes. He's done. Long gone. And his right-hand man, number 2, went to the Trump administration during the Trump years and left Fox News because it became such a Karen show. Anyway, though Trump remains far ahead in polling in Iowa, people in DeSantis' orbit view the state as an opportunity. They have to view it as an opportunity. If Trump wins the Iowa caucuses, this race is over. They need a narrative win like Ted Cruz needed a narrative win times 100 because Ted Cruz was never this far behind Donald Trump. Never. The super PAC supporting DeSantis' candidacy Never Back Down told Politico it has already knocked on 165,273 doors in Iowa. It has spent more than $4 million so far on ads in the state, including one attacking Trump's record on abortion, according to the ad tracking from Ad Impact, the firm. The PAC is also on pace to have 5 offices throughout the state and has received 5,000 non-binding commitments from caucus goers, said a top advisor to the group granted anonymity to freely discuss strategy. Well, I certainly hope you didn't hire the firms that you normally hire to get those 5,000 non-binding commitments. And who knocked on the 165,000 plus doors? Who did you hire to do that? Because there's only really 2 firms in the Republican orbit, that are very well known, and one got caught faking data in 2022. The other one had a bunch of people that they were getting off of Craigslist, trying to pay them $11 to $13 an hour. The guy was checking off doors while hanging out in Caesar's Palace, and he cost, the helped cost Adam Laxalt, an already rather dry guy, the election. So these non-binding, none of that means anything. Doesn't mean anything, folks. They're going by the playbook of normal Republican campaigns that lose. Meanwhile, DeSantis and his wife Casey have been making frequent trips to Iowa and will stump across the state before the Family Leader Summit. Yeah, sure. Okay. Casey DeSantis going to events and talking about how to get stains at early 19th century French wallpaper and Oriental rugs is not exactly how you connect with Iowans. DeSantis isn't alone as he stumps through Iowa. Former Vice President Mike Pence announced his presidential candidacy there and, like other candidates, has been campaigning throughout the Hawkeye state. Despite his public criticism of Reynolds, the popular governor, Trump rallied supporters in Iowa last week. And while no single entity has spent as much as Never Back Down, Senator Tim Scott and his super PAC have collectively shelled out nearly $6 million on ads. I'm telling you, Tim Scott, something about his support in the poll, when we'll go over it, reminds me of Marco Rubio, who soared at the last minute in Iowa to 3rd place. By the way, Cruz got 8 delegates for beating Trump in the Iowa caucus. That's it. You know how many delegates Trump got? 7. You know how many delegates Marco Rubio got for 3rd place? 7. It's all about narrative. It's not about delegates. The beauty of Iowa is you can actually go on the ground and sense a trend before it picks up in the polls, the advisor said. You got to be kidding me. Just stop it. Ron DeSantis has great favorables in Iowa right now, and he still has a chance to tell his story. Inside what is expected to be this is the same advisor who touted on audio, which was leaked to the public by either a drunk social influencer or a donor who is pretending to be a DeSantis backer. Because I know he allowed me, I can say it publicly. Steve Cortez told me 100% that tape was leaked by a donor. Either way, their polling that they went over in that tape was total BS. It doesn't comport at all with the public polls. It's a poll you send to donors. Ron DeSantis is more favorable than Trump. That just simply is not true anymore. Inside what is expected to be a packed convention center in Des Moines on Friday, DeSantis will be interviewed by ousted Fox News anchor Tucker Carlson. And while he won't have the dais to himself, Pence, Scott, Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy, and H.L. Hutchinson will all take a turn on stage. DeSantis will appear as the decided frontrunner in the absence of Trump. The former president leads in Iowa polls by double digits and opted to skip the assembly. DeSantis could hardly have asked for a more favorable setting. The Florida governor will field questions from a well-known TV personality whose disdain for Trump is well documented, and in front of an audience of like-minded conservatives who take seriously their first-in-the-nation role. He has an audience that may have been more receptive to his argument of electability, albeit one weakened by his refusal to acknowledge Trump lost his 2020 re-election. All right, so here's the problem with the electability argument. Emerson, countless other polls, I'm about to drop one myself over the weekend. Even in the state of Iowa, Donald Trump has a far bigger lead over Joe Biden than Ron DeSantis does. Why? Because we're going to talk about it. There are Trump-only voters in Iowa. 31 pivot counties, the most of any other state in the nation, who voted for Barack Obama, not once, but twice, and then voted for Donald Trump. If you think that is just somehow a party trend, you're out of your damn mind. Every single age group. Every single age group. Vanderplat said he praised for Trump, but voiced doubt that he could win the general election. And he said he has plans to make a primary endorsement at some point, but not before the contenders pay homage to his organization. Only how could I put this? Only a dinosaur conservative would think that being anti-gay in the year 2024 is going to win you a general election. There is a big dividing line in the minds of Americans between the trans movement that targets and tries to groom children and take advantage of children with mental disorders, that they chop their genitals off or replace their genitals. In the minds of Americans, there is a big difference between that and what the DeSantis campaign has sent in mailers and advertisements that has been widely criticized by people on the right and the left, which is just straight up, I'm anti-gay. I know gay people who don't want to be lumped in with trans people at all. Only an old school George Bush supporting evangelical would think that that makes you more electable in a general election. And he said he has plans to make a primary endorsement at some point, but not before the contenders pay homage to his organization. Bob Vanderplat has been supporting Ron DeSantis for months, so let's cut the crap. Official support from Vanderplat, an attainable feat for DeSantis, would come with the security of a strong track record. The organization's leader backed Republicans who went on to win the Iowa caucuses in the competitive 08, 12, and 16 primaries. Well, the word that predates all of those, the word that comes before all of those years is the key word: competitive. This is not a competitive race. I will, from this point on, not play along with this game. The lead that Donald Trump has, that I'm about to show you, is a historically large lead, and anyone who calls this competitive is scamming you out of your money. See, for big donors, Bannon's right. These people can cut 6-7 figure checks and not disrupt their lifestyle at all. But to go on Twitter and ask you for your hard-earned money when you're 32 points behind and the front runner, a former president, is at 50 and above with damn near every demographic should be considered fraud. All three, Mike Huckabee, Rick Santorum, and Senator Ted Cruz, failed to clinch their party's nomination. But their early success in Iowa underscores the influence of Vanderplaats in the evangelical movement. But that movement, as Barnes and I talked about on What Are the Odds, has changed a lot. And within that movement, church leaders, if not the rank and file, are welcoming DeSantis. Well, that's a big problem. There are a lot more rank and file than there are the leaders. And right now, the rank and file is not following. The flock is not following the shepherd. Within the church world, there are many that do like DeSantis quite a bit, said Mike Holster, a pastor of Fellowship Church in Oakland, Iowa. My guess is that he's probably going to have a pretty strong showing in Iowa. I think he'll have a stronger, maybe, I don't know, actually. His campaign is floundering so much. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that at all. Normally, I would say, like on paper, he should. And all the efforts he's gotten people behind him, he should. But he is floundering so much. And he's so unlikable. Like, at least Ted Cruz was really good with voters that were like him. He was not good with voters who are not like him. But DeSantis just isn't that good at all. Kalstrup highlighted DeSantis' similarities with Reynolds, noting the two are, quote, are espousing some sensibility within our community that goes a long way, unquote. Several pastors cited the importance of funding for children to attend non-public schools, which DeSantis has championed by expanding Florida's voucher program and exacerbating his ongoing feud with the teachers union. And then there's abortion. Both DeSantis and Reynolds took aggressive stances on abortion following the Supreme Court's overturning last year of Roe v. Wade. And he wound down Florida's legislative session this year. DeSantis signed into law a 6-week abortion ban he's calling the heartbeat bill, akin to a measure Reynolds is supporting this week in her home state. While strict abortion measures are unpopular among general election voters, DeSantis' stance has appealed to Iowa's evangelical pastors, several said in interviews. Life is the most important thing, and if you don't get that one right, why would you get anything else right? Said Lance Frick, a pastor of Triumphant Church in Independence, Iowa. Frick, who lamented the vitriol toward Trump this cycle, nevertheless predicted a strong showing for DeSantis among evangelicals in Iowa. Monty Knudsen, a pastor of Faith Christian Outreach Church in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, compared DeSantis to Pence. Well, that's not a good thing. The former vice president and evangelical who hasn't broken out in the bottom tier this cycle. There is no other bottom. There is no other tier. Ted Cruz, John Kasich, Marco Rubio, at some point maintained 20-something% support, almost even 30 at one point, against Donald Trump, who was hovering between 35 and 40. He did not go above 40 until it was pretty clear he was going to clinch the nomination. There is no other tier. This is great for media because they love headlines, they love a horse race, and it's great for the donors because they just want, they already put so much money into him. They need this media narrative, but it's really, really great for the people the donors are bankrolling, which is the consultant class. Whether or not Ron DeSantis or any one of these other candidates destroys their career on the way down is irrelevant to Jeff Rowe, who will put $35 million in his pocket before this is over. It's irrelevant to Ken Cuccinelli. It's irrelevant to Steve Cortez. They're going to pump money in their pockets, and that's what they get. That's their living. If you can't get into Trump's orbit, you have to find someone else, or else you may have to sacrifice this wild, lavish lifestyle that the vast majority of the country does not enjoy. That's their only choice. So let's stop with this pretentious nonsense. I'm doing this on principle. I'm doing this for print. I really believe. You don't believe in anything but your ability to get a new Bentley every 3 years. You don't believe or have faith in anything other than your palate's desire for filet mignon 4 times a month. If this was any other candidate, every media outlet would be telling you what is the truth, the reality. There is only one front runner in this race, And big donors are trying to overturn every historical predictive indicator known to man. It is not, and I'm seeing some of the most ridiculous things online. It's only these unscientific polls. First of all, polls are not unscientific. Second of all, polling and endorsements are the two leading predictive indicators of who wins a nomination for the party. It isn't even just polling. He's ahead on every measure that has any predictive value in the modern era. And it's not close. DeSantis' team stepped up the criticism of Trump this week, lacing into his approach to campaigning in Iowa. Trump isn't organizing in the state. They don't believe in that. They didn't do it in 2016 when Cruz won the Iowa caucuses. The Never Back Down advisor said they don't appear to be taking the Iowa caucus process seriously. You're starting to see an erosion there, and his behavior matches it, the aide added. I think these people are delusional. In every single Iowa poll, even the ones that were more favorable to DeSantis, DeSantis is on the way down and Trump increased. Even in the American Greatness poll, which was the most unfavorable, among the most unfavorable ones to Trump support, Trump rose by 5 this month and DeSantis fell by 8. They don't believe in traditional caucusing the way it's done because they have something that the DeSantis campaign doesn't have. Supporters. Your supporters argue for you at the caucus. Trump doesn't believe in bribing his supporters to do that. He doesn't have a PAC out there paying people to recruit precinct captains who then trickle it down. We've never seen anything done like this. And yet he still would have beaten Ted Cruz if it wasn't for a dirty trick. In response, Trump spokesperson Stephen Chung attributed Trump's absence at the Family Leadership Summit to a, quote, scheduling conflict, and added, the president will be in Florida this weekend, headlining the premier national young voter conference with Turning Point USA, while DeSantis is nowhere to be found. The truth is, DeSantis was afraid he would get booed. Charlie Kirk was on after me on Bannon, and he made a statement I think is actually 100% true. I'm not sure you can win a Republican nomination without going through the war room and Turning Point crowds. They tried in 2022 to put a bunch of candidates up that got their asses kicked. It was Fox News against Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk, and Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk kicked their ass. DeSantis was afraid he would be booed. He was afraid it wasn't going to work out. And even at the Family Leader Summit, I know two people right there. They all walking around. I said, do me a favor and ask people, whom they're openly supporting. The leaders are supporting DeSantis, but the people are supporting Donald Trump. They're there because that's what Iowa caucus goers do. They are upset that Trump is not there and they will not hear from him. I would have made time in the schedule to do it. The real truth is that Vander Plaats is a never Trumper, and they didn't want to reward him with Trump's presence. That's the truth. A DeSantis spokesperson who asked for comment referred to the candidate's recent interview with the Christian Broadcasting Network, in which he laid out his case for winning over Iowa evangelicals, or evangelicals in period. We don't have to keep going with this. I just want to show you the Fox poll showed DeSantis lagging 59-16 among evangelicals, and we're going to show you what we have for ourselves. They said, my pulse on the Christian vote, that they're split somewhere between Trump and DeSantis. They are not split. No poll shows that they are split. I don't even think that's true to say that they are split. But all of this is happening while DeSantis is desperately needing something to show that his campaign isn't dead. Rupert Murdoch, who gave him $10 million for a book deal, Robert Barnes was absolutely right about that. These book deals are legal bribery, and somebody needs to do something about it, even though they probably won't anytime soon because they all like to get them. But Ron DeSantis went from being a middle-class guy to now being a millionaire because Rupert Murdoch convinced him, I will give you $10 million if you run for president. In case he was jumping up and down, absolutely, I want $10 million. Book didn't even do well. Nobody's read it. They have all these scams to put you on the #1 best-selling list, the New York Times bestseller list. But it is a way. Barnes is totally right about this. It's essentially laundering and a bribe all maxed into one. So that's earlier in the week. Murdoch, very seriously considering cutting him loose. What's 10 million between friends? And then we have this one coming next. So I'm not going to read them all. I'm just simply going to go. Ken Griffin, by the way, was somebody who made Mike Cernovich, who once supported DeSantis, cringe. Well, I don't know if Mike just thought I wasn't telling the truth or what. When I told him that Ken Griffin backs Ron DeSantis, he had to wait until the filings came out. And once he saw it, he cringed with good reason. Ken Griffin is somebody who has said, I would never support another Republican because of Trump's Muslim ban. This guy is not at all a Republican, like most Republican voters would believe. Griffin told Politico in November that, quote, it's time for Republicans to, quote, move on, unquote, from Trump and expressed his support for DeSantis. He's given him hundreds, probably not millions now, hundreds of thousands of dollars. All right. So, but Griffin is continuously walking around talking to other candidates. He's looking for somebody, another horse to replace Ron DeSantis because, Griffin gave $5 million towards his reelection, which he then used. And, they all call Loomer crazy. She's killing it right now, and she's a major thorn in their side. The money that Ron DeSantis is claiming he raised, $85 million of it was a transfer from people that supported Trump. It was a transfer from his reelection effort, but you cannot run again consecutively after 2 terms. So he had the legislature change the law that he can run while still being the governor. By the way, it's hurricane season coming. So I don't know if they're waiting for a catastrophe to make him look presidential or what, but this is really bad. Anyway, so the Rolling Stone, they mentioned the Rolling Stone article here. It's a bad situation for the DeSantis campaign. All right. And they absolutely need some kind of a win. Now let's go on quickly to the map, which was updated, and then we'll move on to the crosstabs because there's so much I want to show you. Here's the new map. We updated it. There was some a sample size absolutely did increase slightly, but really what came down to it is once market site stopped giving us a major problem, and it's still, I can tell from you guys, I know there's still some loading issues, but it is getting better. But once they gave us the ability to go back and apply, do our rake weighting, geography did have about a 2-point impact on the race. So it made, I'm looking at the overall sample and I'm thinking to myself, it's too wealthy. It's too moderate. So at the end of the day, that was most definitely it. And this is the new map. So let me just, as of July 12th, Trump leads DeSantis 51-19. We'll get into the specifics of that. All the other candidates remain in single digits. Only 0.1% said someone else. I mean, they don't want anyone else in this race at this point. That has collapsed from the low double digits at one point. It's now not even measurable. 8.5% said they're undecided. All right, so we interviewed 1,057 likely voters to include 478 likely Republican caucus goers. The overall sampling error for the survey, which will also have general election matchups coming out soon, 3% at a 95% confidence interval, and 4.5 with the Republican caucus. Right, so the results were weighted for gender, age, race and ethnicity, education, and region. It is important to note that sampling errors for subgroups are in fact higher, and the Republican caucus goer is technically a subgroup of the overall poll. And not technically, it is. All right, so here's the map. The map actually shows that in the southeastern part of the state, the county of Des Moines, not the city and metropolitan area, but the southeastern part of the state, Trump actually is ahead. Dubuque, he's ahead. Davenport, he's ahead. Cedar Rapids, he's ahead. Waterloo, he's ahead. Des Moines, he's killing it. Over a quarter of the vote sometimes, and he's crushing it. Sioux City, all where the evangelicals are out here. I mean, there are evangelicals everywhere, but Western evangelicals saved Ted Cruz, and Trump is crushing it over there. Would DeSantis do better in some of the farthest west, northwest counties? It does look like he would. Iowa City is now essentially a 3-way tie, even though DeSantis had a slight lead there. It is essentially a 3-way tie between Trump. Now he got the last response there. Trump, Tim Scott, and Ron DeSantis. Vivek has some support there as well, but that's where we're at. Ames is much closer now than it was before. By the way, the plus threes, just so we know, plus 16s, that indicates, watch, I'll zoom in. That indicates that we conducted a series, that many interviews. It's in such a close proximity, it groups them together. It does not mean that DeSantis is ahead in Ames by 2 points. So, for instance, certain to vote. This is my first caucus. I'm Ron DeSantis supporter. I cannot be persuaded to change my mind. I'm female. I'm 64. I'm white, conservative, traditional Republican, as opposed to an America First Republican. This is part of his actual high school support. Trump is killing him with that demographic. Making under 30,000, is married, lives in rural areas outside of Ames. All right. So this is also a DeSantis supporter. This one can be persuaded to change their mind, which is something that we're going to talk about. It's a big deal who is and who is not persuadable. So this is not a strong DeSantis supporter. It's just somebody that picked it. Getting closer to urban Ames, Trump gets a little bit more support. All right. So this is a Trump voter. This is their first caucus. Oh, no, this one's undecided. Sorry, I must have clicked the wrong one. Nope, they're both. Oh, that's one. There you have it. So those two are both undecided. And can be persuaded to change their mind is obviously a big problem for DeSantis and other candidates. All right, but it just shows you that's plus two, plus that. It might have changed since the last time. I mean, it does update constantly, although I closed it. People who were taking interviews could continue to take them. But here you can see when we get into the Des Moines area, it's very, very dark red, which means in a concentrated area, Donald Trump has a lot of support. Here's one, the first one. There is nobody who has any non-white support except for Donald Trump. And the Iowa caucus will be more non-white than it typically is. It will look more like a general election, but it still, of course, will be over 90% white. But notice when you find these Trump voters, they are not persuadable. All right, so the idea is over 50%, and most of them won't change their mind, is a major challenge for anyone not named Donald Trump. Look at that. Can't be persuaded. This one's a DeSantis supporter, but can be persuaded. Another Trump supporter. I cannot be persuaded. This is a big area. There are a lot of votes here, and Trump is doing very, very well there. All right, let's go to the crosstabs. Actually, I'm just going to stop sharing. We'll go back to the map probably in a second, but let's go back to the crosstabs. I'm already looking. It's already 12:36, and I got David coming on and everything to do a whole different topic. Although I want to ask him about this. Let me get a second, get some water. All right. So Trump 50.6, rounding it's 51. DeSantis 9.2, 19.2, rounding it's 19. Tim Scott 7, Vivek 4, Mike Pence 4, Nikki Haley 2, Chris Christie 2, Doug Burgum 1, Asa Hutchinson not even 1, Larry Elder rounded up to 1, 0.6, Will Hurd 0.7. I got to change some of this, there's like another response here and there, or a weight thing or something moves it out of whack, but it doesn't even matter. I seriously am considering just putting all others on those maps because there's just so few responses. When you go through it, you'll see. If you click on Will Hurd, for instance, and you look at that map, you're going to see the tiniest amount of people. All right, this is regular age detail I'm going to go to in a second. Again, for people who didn't hear on Wednesday, the reason why we have 17 to 24 is because you technically can be 17 right now and registered to vote. But as long as you are 18 by the time the caucuses are held. If you're not going to be 18 by the time the caucuses are held, you can't be. All right. But that's the way it is in the state of Iowa. But by the time we get there in January, they will be. All right, let's go to detail. 17 to 24, Trump 46, DeSantis 12. 25 to 29, Trump 54, DeSantis 13. 30 to 39, Trump 44, DeSantis 25. 40 to 49, Trump 52, DeSantis 18. 50 to 64, Trump 52, DeSantis 19. 65 to 74, and the reason why I think DeSantis has more support here is because they're one of the more decided groups. 52 to 25. And 75 plus is 43-6. 6. I believe it's Nikki Haley who actually has 15%. Even though it's smaller, it's not. It's weighted down. Mike Pence. Okay. By race, Trump leads with whites, 50-20. He leads with Hispanics, 61-16. He leads with blacks, 74-0, basically. Vivek has 14%. And Asians are 28-21. By party, they are all eligible and registered. I know what people are going to say, but if you look at exit polls, entrance polls, for caucuses, we're asking people what they technically identify as. If they were registered as Democrats or independents, they were alerted. They have 70 days before the Iowa caucuses to change their registration. Do you intend to do that to be eligible for Republican caucusing? And they are included if they were a yes, but they were prompted for that. Among self-identified, I am identifying as a Republican, 52-20, Democrat, 52-5, independent, other, 47-19. So Trump leads with the base, but he also leads with people outside of the base. Liberal, 31-20. Trump still leads, even though he's weak there. Moderate, 44-14. He still leads, even though he's weak there. And conservatives, 54-21. Conservatives will make up 80-85% of Iowa caucus goers. So the fact that he is above 50 with them is a major problem. Again, for anyone not named Trump. There are more Republicans in Iowa who identify as America First Republicans than there are those who identify as traditional Republicans. Among America First Republicans, Trump leads 67-18. Traditional Republicans, Trump still leads 37-25. The traditionals are splitting their vote between Tim Scott, Ron DeSantis, and other candidates. By education tells the tale. 62-15 among those who have a high school degree or less, or equivalent GED or less, or vocational schools, secondary schools. Some college associates, Trump is at 54, DeSantis is at 21. A 4-year college graduate, Trump still leads 45-18. Only among advanced post-grad does it tighten up. And it's about even at 26 between the Trump and DeSantis. By income also tells the tale. Iowa will be largely 30 to 100,000. This is a very small share of the vote. All right. That's not a small share, but between 30 to 100,000, or really just under 100,000, that's the bulk of the electorate. Under 30,000, Trump leads 50-20, 30-50, he leads 62-13. That is a very big voting block in the Iowa caucuses. 50-100 is the biggest voting block. Trump leads 49-18. 100-200,000, Trump leads 41-28, and $200,000 or more, which is like 5-7% of a general election, let alone a Republican caucus. 54-16. Employed, it's interesting when you look at what Robert Barnes has been talking about. The disabled voting groups, among those, 59-15. DeSantis is doing good with students, while Trump is doing better with younger. Why is Trump then winning the 25-29 so handedly? Because he is doing so much better with younger voters who are really working class. When you get a poll like Quinnipiac, they don't really distinguish between younger working class voters and a student. They actually throw students in with with their working class demographic when they tout it. We make a distinction. Among those who are retired, they will be at the caucus a lot more than anybody else. 48, or at least they'll be most likely to show up. 48-18. Now, let's get to religiosity. The Iowa caucuses are at least typically, 20 years ago, they would have been more than a half. In 2016, they were only like 45%, 40%. This time around, they're looking somewhere in the ballpark of 40-42. I think I was generous. I actually think that they, the geography did that. I wouldn't be surprised if evangelicals make up like 38. Doesn't matter anyway. We just read that article from Politico. If self-identified evangelicals, Trump leads 51-19. The exact margin that he leads, almost the exact margin that he leads Ron DeSantis overall, if we're looking at decimals, tens of percentage points, tens of points, whole numbers. DeSantis is 0.2 of a percentage point higher in support among those who are evangelical than he is in average across the state. He's 0.2 of a percentage point less than he is across the state with those who are not identified as evangelicals. 50.5, 51 to 19. Among those who are not, 51 to 19. We're just talking about hair of decimal adjustments. Hair of a single percentage point, tenths, 0.2 in any direction. By area, Trump leads in the urban area. Des Moines area is doing a lot of this. I mean, it's a big part of the vote, folks. And then you have the eastern cities region, which made up, about 20-something%. And actually, I can give you exactly how much each of ours make up. Hold on. Let me see. Come on, show. Yeah, there it is. Give me 1 second, and I will give you exactly how much each of these are making up. Come on, where is it? Let me just go and look and see my history. I do want to give this to you. Let me show the full history, and then maybe I can find it better rather than going and looking. I think this is it right here, isn't it? Yep. Give me a second. I'll give you exactly how much they are. That's Biden and Kennedy. Okay. The eastern cities are making up about 23% of the vote. Central is 16% of the vote. The Des Moines area is 27% of the vote. Central Iowa, or caucus, Republican caucus. Central Iowa is, it looks rounded up 18, and the West is just under 16%. So, urban area, Trump leads 53-17. In the suburbs, he leads 50-22. In the rural area, he leads 50-19. Now, let's look at some of the other stuff here. Let's go to cannot be persuaded. Oh, man, this is going to be like, here we go. Come on. Let's pray for some fast loading here, folks. Come on, it's 12:46. Let's go. I do have screenshots, which I'm going to consider adding now. Yep, here we go. Hey, it loaded up. Never mind. If it's going to load like that, I don't mind. And I did the wrong one. You've got to be joking me. I did. I have to do it like this in order for you guys to see exactly what I'm trying to show. All right. By the time I loaded up the graphics to be an actual image, a picture, it'll have loaded up. So we might as well just be patient. Water break. Okay. So obviously these are going to go to the hundreds because full percent. If you're Donald Trump, it's crossing with the same thing. All right. Now let's go to I can be persuaded. Could you be persuaded to support another candidate at the caucus, or is your mind made up? Trump's voters, 63%, near a supermajority. I cannot be persuaded to change my mind. Let me just do some quick math in my head. That's about 32%. Trump's support right now, his firm, decided support, is more than Ted Cruz had when he won the Iowa caucus. It was more than Ted Cruz's final share of the caucus vote. Among Ron DeSantis supporters, 74% of them say they can change their mind. 79% of Tim Scott's vote says they can change their mind. Vivek, 94. We're getting into some real small, but Mike Pence, 75. Nikki Haley, 75. Or 82, excuse me. Chris Christie, 57. Doug Burgum, he got 4 votes, folks. 5, really. That's the way weights work. Because we're weighting down, we always weight down. I mean, this is kind of a little bit ridiculous, don't you think? 14% of people who are undecided are suggesting that they probably won't change their mind. It means they're either lying and they have an idea in their head who they're going to vote for, or they're not going to really vote. Candidate-specific support. Again, also, when you're at 50, 51, your share of being unpersuadable is more than somebody's entire share. Trump's the number of people in the state of Iowa right now who going to attend a Republican or likely to attend the Republican caucus in January, the raw number of people who are decided and not persuadable, they will vote for Donald Trump, is more than twice as many. It is more than Ron DeSantis's vote that's decided and considering voting for him put together. It's more than second and third places vote shares put together. It's more than second, third, and fourths put together. Candidate-specific support. I would vote for thinking about the general election. If your candidate choice, does not receive the Republican nomination, would you vote for the party's nominee, consider voting for the Democratic nominee or third-party nominee, or not vote at all? While 78% of Trump supporters say they would vote for the Republican nominee, 2.8%, very small, say they would consider voting for the Democratic nominee, 12% would consider voting for third party, and 8% say they would not vote at all. This is just the Republican caucus vote. This doesn't count people who would vote in a general election but not in a caucus, but only for Trump and no one else, which is a bigger number of people. If 200,000 people who show up for a caucus, you have 1.7 million who show up in a general election in Iowa or presidential general election. This is an indicator that the vote Republicans would lose by not having Trump as their nominee would be pretty massive. That one category alone is equal to all of DeSantis' different options combined. Let alone the third party. Even though 16% of Ron DeSantis' voters say they would consider voting for third party, it is still half the number of people even that say that are Trump voters, even though Trump's percentage is less. Again, winning an election is all about this equation that you're trying to swap this group with that group. And at the end of the day, you want on net the greatest number of people to make up your coalition. The vote that would be lost among Trump voters is basically more than everyone else combined. So it will not just be Emerson, because when we asked about the general election matchups, DeSantis leads Biden, but he doesn't lead him like a Trump win in Iowa. Those people are not joking. They absolutely chose. I would not vote. All right. Let's see if there's something else I wanted to basically break this down. It's 12:52. I did that really kind of quick. Let me just show you one more graphic to give you an idea of how dominant of a lead we're talking about here. Graphics show the more than I can express it in words. Graphics, they say a picture says 1,000 words. That works that way with data as well. Here's some of the key demographics broken down. Total 51 to 19, high school or less, 62 to 15, some associates, 53 to 21, college, 45 to 18. Advanced, just a hair. DeSantis is down 1/10 of a percentage point. So very, very close. And that you can see here. All right. And then urban areas, way ahead. Even in the suburbs that I thought Trump can't win, way ahead. Rural, way ahead. Among evangelicals, the topic of that Politico article, the topic of the discussion today at Friday with Bob Vander Plaats's organization. Again, the sheep are not following the shepherd. Don't tell me it hasn't shown up in the polls yet. It's a 30-point deficit. Conservatives, self-identified, 54 to 21. A 33-point deficit. Don't forget to join the Locals community, peoplespundit.locals.com. That is where you will get all of this information first and foremost. I really don't know what else to tell you guys. I really don't. And I got to be honest. I think I was being more than fair to anyone not named Donald Trump with this survey. More than fair. Do some basic math and look at how conservative it is. We could have gotten, I mean, if you look back at other shares by region, I think we're really close, spot on. If you look at income, it's still favorable to non-Trumpers, the non-Trump wing. It's not even as evangelical as it could be. That's the truth. It's certainly not as conservative as the last Iowa caucus. It's more moderate. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll bring on David. We'll ask him. I'm going to ask him for his reaction, but also an update to what the California GOP is doing. They're gaslighting you. See, I suspect that David's going to come on because it's so funny. These people joke. They say everything like on Twitter and publicly, and then I read their emails from delegates who leak them to me because they are confused. Some of them are confused. I don't really understand what they mean. I thought this wasn't true. And the answer is it's not. They're lying to you. The truth is Jessica Patterson hates Donald Trump, wants this rule change. End of story. And Harmeet Dillon can go to Twitter and say, I'm going to introduce this change. It's not a change. What Jessica's promoting is a change. And it still says in their emails to the delegates who are asking for clarification, they're still repeating the lie to them. They're still repeating the lie. I would put them up if I didn't want to get certain people in trouble. But some of them know who asked what questions. So I can't put them up. The wording is just going to be obvious. They're going to say, I remember who sent that email. Or you could just go look for it. And these people are scared because this is something we always heard, and David's going to bring it up too. Like, this is what they were always skeptical of Harmeet for. They're like, Harmeet Dillon has been Jessica Patterson's bulldog forever. She does her bidding. So they're afraid to even take their concerns to Harmeet or their questions to Harmeet. You're a county chair and you oppose them, you're done. They're coming after you. We'll talk about that more after I come back from the break. Let's go to break real quick, and then we'll discuss this a lot more. Look, folks, authorities fear the extremists are targeting the U.S. power grid. That's according to Time magazine. But it could just be weather. Could be incompetence. If just 9 key substations were to go down, it would knock out power across the country for up to 18 months. All of our lives would be frozen in time at the moment that power went out, except for those who had a solar generator. The new Patriot Power Generator 2000X is portable, but it's powerful enough for your phones, medical devices, even your refrigerator. And even those who have one like a natural gas one like me, that runs out. Propane runs out. This does not. Right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and get one along with free panels if you use the code 10%, use the code TPP10 to get 10% off at checkout. This code is for your first purchase only, so make it count. Again, that's 4patriots.com. Use the promo code TPP10 at checkout to get 10% off the Patriot Power Generator today. And you can also go through it, and what you'll see is that they have a whole lot of new features on the 2000X. It's brilliant. And again, right now, that deal that was just on the screen before, that has free solar panels along with it. So you will still get those free solar panels and 10% off. TPP10 for Patriots. And of course, real quick before we go back, we'll tell you about a great deal that our friends at Jam and Bean are still offering viewers and listeners of the Inside the Numbers show and other People's Pundit followers. When you sign up for a new subscription at Jammin Bean, that's JAMN Bean.com, you will get 40% off if you use the code TPP40. 40% off of that new subscription right off the bat, and yet you will still get 10% off every month that you renew. So whether you like freshly roasted beans, or grind them yourself, make it however you'd like, or you're like me, and sometimes you're just in a rush and you need K-Pods as well, sampling the gourmet popcorn. Maybe you already sampled the gourmet popcorn and you love it and want a subscription. Sign up now, jamminbean.com. Use the promo code TPP40. It's almost half off right off the jump. And of course, send us your thoughts. We love to hear from them. We love to hear what flavors you like. We love to hear about the service. They're great. Patriot owned, great guys, highly talented, highly skilled. It's well worth it. All right. So if he's done looking at his phone now and there ain't any audio interference, we'll go ahead and bring on our buddy David to talk about this stuff. And well, first, David, I want to thank you for joining. And then I do want to get your reaction to the poll in Iowa amid everything that's going on here. And then we'll get into California. But thanks for joining, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing good. You can, it's all working this time. No, see, I was checking some baseball rumors. My Angels are going to break my heart soon, so I'm just keeping up on it. But no, I see the polling in Iowa. Obviously, this is supposed to be one of DeSantis's strongest states, and he is at 19%. So I guess in some states that is strong for him. But Trump ranking above 50%, you have to think the money they've already spent, and because they're counting how many doors they've knocked on and all this stuff.
170,000.
A ton of money already in Iowa for 19%. And it's just, in my mind, this has just been a total miscalculation of everything, because like you read off the stats about Trump supporters, 63%, 61 are just not going to budge from the president.
63 point something. Yeah.
You cannot win. There's just no path to victory with those kind of numbers. And I think anybody who understands Trump supporters would know that that was going to be the case even before this so-called primary season got started. So, it's a crazy situation. I don't think Ron's going to get out. There's a lot of people, like you said, that are greasing the wheels and making a lot of money off his candidacy. So he's kind of got to stay in to save face, I think, at this point. But I think we might look back at this race 10, 15 years from now, and this could be one of the biggest collapses of an upcoming political candidate in history, because it's going to be really difficult, I believe, whether it's fair or not to say, because DeSantis people get really offended when you say these kind of things, that he's going to have a really difficult time in 2028, regardless of where Trump is, if Trump's president, or if Trump, whatever going on with Trump, he's going to have a difficult time. I mean, I think he's going to be a forgotten commodity by then. Donors aren't going to want to dish out hundreds of millions of dollars on a guy that they blew it on the last time that couldn't get 20%.
Yeah, and I think that's right, because that's what history really has shown. There have been these vice presidents, and Harry Enten, again, has actually been writing some really good articles. Vice presidents, other people that are standard or believed to be the politician that would get the torch passed to them. That only works if you don't betray the person passing the torch. And what Harry wrote using vice presidents as an example, because we haven't, this is very, very similar, but even leaders of other movements, it doesn't work, man. Ross Perot to Pat Buchanan, whatever it may be. If you screw over the initial leader, whether he's a president or a leader of a movement, if you screw that person over, you piss off that person's foundation. And then there's just the task of rebuilding your own coalition out of the fallout of that is just too monumental. Nobody's ever been able to do it before. What do you think about, I want to ask you about tonight. Bob Vander Plaats has been someone who's been not only anti-Trump, dude, a never Trumper, just a nasty, shit talking, backstabbing. If you were Trump, would you have gone? I almost feel like, look, Trump can go anywhere and do anything he wants. What he really, don't give me scheduling conflict crap. he's the kind of person who's like, I don't like you, you don't like me, and I'm not going to make your event better with me being there. Like, I'm not going to lend my clout to you, and that's the way Trump is. And also, I'm 30 points ahead. I don't need you, so it is something going on this time, David, that the Politico article did at least address. Yeah, you don't want to snub evangelical leaders. You don't. I know two people at the getting ready. They're ones at the event already as it gets started. They're telling me the people themselves, not the leaders, not the evangelical pastors, the people themselves are for Trump, and that they would have liked to see Trump there. So what do you think, man? I mean, I get where Trump's coming from, but I don't know.
Here's the thing. Like you said, Trump can go anywhere, anytime he wants and do anything.
Yep.
So I don't think Trump has to go to someone else's event, because the rank and file evangelicals, like you were saying, the flock. If Trump goes to Iowa and holds an event, they're going to go to that event. So he'll see them there and he'll talk to them there. He doesn't have to go to this guy's event to see those same people. They're going to show up whenever Trump comes, regardless. Now, the people that are going to be butthurt are the leaders, because they're not going to go to Trump's event because they don't like Trump. So they just want him there because they want to, they want to boost their event. They want the coverage. It helps their, their whole spiel. It makes their, their ego bigger, and it gets their name out there. But the people that actually, the voters that Trump needs to connect with, he holds an event in Iowa, they'll be there. It's really it's the same thing with the debates. Like, they're making a big deal about Trump skipping a debate. He's 30 points ahead. Like you said, there really is no second tier candidate. Trump could have, if Trump had a rally on the same night as the debate in Iowa, or wherever they're doing the debate, I believe it's in Iowa, right? The first one. If he has a rally the same day, more people are going to watch his rally and go to his rally than they are going to go to the debate. So he's just lending credence to other people and giving other people airtime. They're hanging off his star. If that, they're riding his coattails to get their name out there. And that's what the other candidates are worried about. That's why they want Trump at the debate, because they know if Trump's at the debate, more people are going to watch, and it gives them a chance to land, whatever they consider to be a cheap shot or a win. Like, what was it, Scott Walker, they thought landed that big one in, what was it, 2016, right? And, fizzled out. And it's just, they need Trump to bring the eyes on the prize. And when he's not there, they know they're not going to get the exposure.
Yeah, I think that there's that you make a good point. And then, obviously if Trump holds an event, they're going to go to that. I don't know if he's going to go to the debate. I think that it would be a big mistake not to go to the debate unless there's some kind of thing that they're demanding from him that he can't give up. And then if that was the case, I would say, listen, I'm going to call Jack Posobiec, or I'm going to call Charlie Kirk, or I'm going to call Tucker Carlson, and we're going to do our own debate over here where the RNC isn't forcing me to do something I don't agree with. And you can come to our debate, or you can go and you can all sit on the kiddie stage again and fight over 5 points while I crush you by 35. And that's what I would do if I was Trump. But he should debate, David, because Raheem.
Well, I think I think he should debate, because I think it's some of the best moments from 2016. You could still go back and watch Trump on the debate stage, hammering Jeb Bush. I think people kind of want to see that old vintage Trump there, with that attitude and that snapback cockiness. I kind of want to see it again. And I think the other people.
You know what, Jeb? You started over here next to me, and then you're all the way over there. Soon you're gonna fall off the damn stage.
And these Tim Scott, Nikki Haley candidates think that if Trump goes to the debate and does that, they actually think that that's going to hurt him in the polling, but they're actually wrong. I think that'll make Trump skyrocket again. People know what Trump is. They know his personality. That's kind of what drew people to him in 2016. They watched those debates and they're like, holy crap, this guy doesn't talk like a politician. This guy's just like out here, kicking ass and taking names. And that's what they liked about him. So these people are miscalculating the voters. They believe that Republican voters are going to be morally appalled by Trump like they are, which they're really not, because these people behind the scenes say all the same things. They just pretend to be holier than holy when the camera's on.
That's right. They're so crap. Republicans are such hypocrites. I'm sorry. They're such hypocrites. They talk just as bad, only maybe they do it in a more pretentious way. It's like, oh God, he's so crass.
Yeah.
Juanita, fold my shirt. You know, like it's like who's worse?
You know, and they make all their same jokes. So it's really just ridiculous.
Sure
But they
they
think
do.
that voters are going to be appalled by this. And it's just, I mean, I'm more appalled by the guy we have in the White House than anything else. If you look
Not
at what's
them.
going on with
Not them, David. Not them.
So, you know, it's just crazy to me that we're having this long drawn out fight. And I think what's unfortunate is that Trump is going to be the nominee as long as they don't kick him out with lawfare. But these donors like Ken Griffin, Ken Cuccinelli, if the real fight, I believe, is going to come after the primary, because they are going to argue that they're broke. They're not going to want to give money to Trump. And I think in some places they are going to actually spend money against him. And they're going to do this out of spite. They will cost the GOP, or not even the GOP, because it's not them. They will cost Trump and his movement the election. So then they can go back. They'll try. They can go back and say, look, he lost again. He's you know.
Well, they did that in 22, David. They sabotaged
it in 22.
Kim Reynolds right now, who's endorsing DeSantis after, again, yet another one who needed Trump to win. All right. After endorsing, they're endorsing DeSantis. She was, from what I hear, she was very influential in the RGA. Doug Ducey was a figurehead, but along with the Ricketts and everything, you know, to keep support away from Kerry Lake, Doug Mastriano, Tim Michaels, anyone who beat their preferred candidate. You know, don't know why Doug doesn't tell more of these stories. They're not mine. All of them are not mine to tell, but Doug's got stories, and they would absolutely infuriate the Republican base.
I mean, and
they did this on purpose.
We've seen some, and you've talked to candidates. I mean, it was the Governors Association, the NRCC, the National Republican Senatorial, all three of those groups that control the money out of spite. They got their butts kicked in primaries, and they were like, listen, as long as we can still win a majority, even if it's a 3-state majority, that's fine with us if we can be able to torpedo this movement. And they've, you know, let's give them credit. It worked for a while, especially immediately after the midterms. There were a lot of people that were like, oh, I was a Trumper, but we lost here, and now we got to rethink this. And I think people are starting to wake up to the nonsense. You know, but McConnell, McCarthy, they're still there in power. Ronna McDaniel's still there. I mean, the RGA is still a mess. I mean, we just saw McConnell. I saw a political article that McConnell wants so-called moderates on the ballot on Senate races.
Yeah, absolutely. So does Steve Daines, without a doubt.
Yeah, I know. That's why when people were cheering the Steve Daines pick, I was like, you know, it's not. I'm not that excited over it, because at the end of the day, it's going to be the same kind of situation. And it's really a shame because they waste a lot of it. There are certain states and certain congressional districts where just because it's, you know, specifically in a congressional district, just because it's a blue state, it could be a deep red district where you don't need a so-called moderate candidate. And then in some states, they're like Ohio, right? We got to have Matt Dolan. Matt Dolan couldn't even defend the name of a baseball team from the radical left. And you expect him to go to the Senate and
keep his shit.
Yeah. And in Ohio, where JD Vance won, and Trump, it's now, if you run an America First candidate, it's a solid red state. I mean, if you run a Trumplican, it's a solid red state. You don't need a so-called moderate anymore there. So
that's why I say don't believe the early poll. Listen, it's right by me. Good. I trust them, and also Eastern Carolina University. Right. So ECU, I trust their polling. I just think that it's early, and many people don't know who Bernie Moreno is. That's why he came in third, and also why he was running the weakest against Sherrod Brown. The minute it becomes clear that, and even though JD endorsed him, people don't really know David yet. They just don't. And that Trump endorsement is supposed to be coming. He hasn't endorsed anybody yet, which I know is frustrating to a lot of people, and he needs to get off. I know he's got lawfare going on, but
Can you say it again?
Yeah, that was you.
Spying on me. You see that? I didn't even say the name.
Yesterday, we were sitting watching. Yesterday, we were sitting watching a movie, and I got to ask Laura what I said, but I mentioned the Democratic Party, and I didn't say anything that resembles, hey, you know, I don't want to do it to you again. And my laptop just went, here's what I found on how to vote for the Democratic Party. I was like, well, what?
Yeah, this thing does that. I'm telling you, they definitely.
Oh, it's totally. Republicans have
no
idea.
I see the lights go on the echo a lot, and I'm like,
Republicans have no idea what they're really up against, David. They really don't.
Before you made that good point, because I was actually going to say before you led into it, if there's one thing I think the president does need to do, start taking advantage of, and
Time to wake
I
up.
think it's a little
Yep.
bit of a mistake not to do it. He does have to start fielding a slate of candidates for this cycle because he wants to win the White House back. He needs to go in,
Yeah.
he wins re-election. He needs to be able to go in there with a Congress and a Senate that is full of people like him that are going to push his agenda. So he has to get, I know they're distracting him with the lawfare. Obviously, he's taking up a lot of time and all this stuff with the primary. But this is just as important of a battle. He needs soldiers behind him because what happened in 2016 was he didn't do. Obviously, he was still first-time candidate. Nobody really thought he was going to win, so he wasn't endorsing people in 2016. I mean, nobody in the media thought he was going to win, but he wasn't endorsing slates of candidates. So when he won, he went to Congress with a bunch of Republicans that were old school, rhinos, and they sabotaged him for 2 years. They halted his most important agenda pieces. He can't have that again this time. And I think he really needs to understand that, hey, I know you wanna keep the peace, everything steady right now with maybe McConnell and McCarthy, but at the end of the day, if you become president again and those guys are going to thwart your agenda, you gotta make yourself and your side a little more powerful than they are. So I think he needs to start going out there and looking at candidates in congressional races across the country and in Senate races and really get behind people. So when he wins again, McConnell cannot stop him. McCarthy cannot stop him, and I think that's the one thing I think he really needs to do a little bit better right now is just get involved in that a little bit more.
Yeah, this is something I told you I was going to sandbag you with on locals. So this is an example I perhaps am talking about. So if, for example, he would come out and get you to run either against John, because John Duarte is going to lose that race. You know it. I know it. He didn't win by very much. He won by 400 votes. But actually, this is probably Tom McClintock's last year. The next cycle that Tom McClintock is up for re-election, he's probably going to retire. And then there will be 1 million people who jump their hat in. And it will be a question of whether Trump will even be there at that moment or what's going to happen at that moment. So listen, McClintock endorsed DeSantis. If I was Donald Trump, I would call you because you live right there now that they changed the district. And I would primary Tom McClintock. I'm just saying it out loud. I
would run for either.
What is his vote record? What's he doing this session, David?
Well,
what
Kevin has basically neutered the entire Republican delegation from California. I mean, they're terrified of him. Even Kevin Kiley, who went to Congress, Trump endorsed Kiley, has voted straight in line with Kevin McCarthy. I mean, Tom voted for the debt ceiling increase. Tom has voted for Ukraine aid. This is a guy who never voted for any of that stuff in the past. And I think it's because Kevin said basically, listen, I saved you from a primary because the guy who ran against you I liked, and he's younger. Now you can't cause trouble for me anymore when I'm Speaker of the House. And that's what this is really about. This is everything that the California delegation is doing is about protecting Kevin because he doesn't want people in his own home turf making him look bad. And yeah, I'd love to go to Congress and I'd be one of those fighters for Trump. If he backed me in any race, any one of those races, I would do it in a heartbeat because he needs allies. You can't have Matt Gaetz being one guy stand against 200 people because eventually he's going to have no choice but to fold. He needs more people to vote with him. Yeah. And you saw yesterday, we did get 70 to vote against sending more money to Ukraine, but we could get a lot more than that with the president's help. So yeah, I mean, people are changing their voting habits because of Kevin. And we're going to get into the California thing, but this is important. People don't understand that Kevin, it's like the mafia.
It is.
In the California Republican Party.
It is.
And this has been going up for a while. Kevin's rise has been planned and counted on by them for a while. And now that he got that gavel, they will do whatever they need to keep it. It is cutthroat. And so that's why I think Trump needs to be more proactive in this and back candidates like me, like many others that ran last time. Because quite frankly, who's going to do it again after Rich, we saw firsthand what Kevin's capable of doing. People are going to not want to put their name on the line unless the president goes to bat for them. And voters want to see it. Voters are like, hey, let's find Trump people because the money that the NRCC has, the Congressional Leadership Fund has, can fool a lot of people into thinking you're getting a Trump candidate when you're really not.
And that's what happened in California 13 last time.
Yeah.
It's exactly what happened. And thank
you. So
yeah,
I would absolutely run any race that he called me. I'd be like, yeah, let's do it because I think we can win either of those easily. I don't think CA 13 is a blue seat, really. I think, you and I
Yeah.
both know registration numbers in
Purple.
California are very misleading.
Yes.
But CA5, I mean, that is about as MAGA. That is the most MAGA. That would be a deep red seat in a deep red state. That's how MAGA that seat is. So, the
Well, yeah,
president
let's
needs
be
back.
real. He was in trouble last time. And McCarthy was like
Well, Kevin greenlit
busying
his
up to
donors.
Nathan Magzig, dude. He
Yeah,
was.
Kevin greenlit his donors to fund both guys,
He
and
did.
then he'll deny it all day, but he was taking pictures with Nathan Magzig at parades, and his donors who only give money on his orders were giving money to Nathan. And I think that kind of scared Tom. I think Kevin went and said, "Listen, look what I could have done here. You cannot cause trouble for me," because
Trump
Tom is a
won't be
guy in the
around
past that
forever.
yeah, Tom is a guy that in the past has bucked the leadership. He used to be a Freedom Caucus guy, but he's totally changed this cycle. I mean, he's voting whatever Kevin wants him to. He voted again yesterday. He was not one of the 70 who stopped
No.
money to Ukraine.
70 is an abysmal number.
I know there's 221 of them.
The vast majority of the Republican Party wants nothing to do with this fight in Ukraine. And yet the Congress doesn't. This is why there's a major problem with the Republican identity and why they can never count like nowadays in 18 and 22 without Trump on the ballot. They cannot count on their entire base coming out for them because they don't feel represented. Why would you come out and vote for a guy who's talking the talk, but then gets to Congress and doesn't walk the walk, winds up, you yourself absolutely hate this concept of putting Ukraine before. I mean, Charlie Kirk last time he interviewed me last week, he was joking, but it was like a real, like the best jokes are true. And Charlie was like, Rich, tell me, when does Ukraine get delegates? When does Ukraine get a primary? Are they on the calendar yet? Like, this is ridiculous, but he's right. They care more about the people in Ukraine than they do about the voters that they beg to come out and support.
Which you talk to these
damn year.
consultants. You talk to these consultants and these people, they're so out of touch with the new average Republican voter. Part of it is hubris. Part of it is they just want to force their beliefs on others. But also a lot of it is because they don't want to associate with these voters that Trump brought into the party, these working class voters. So they don't understand that these people would rather their tax dollars go to, I don't know, infrastructure or border security or, I don't know, healthcare, veteran stuff. They don't get that. They think that this is still 2004 where every Republican voter is like, yeah, more troops going to Iraq, more troops doing this. It's not that way anymore. And, when your top of your party doesn't associate with the bulk of the members who make up your party, you have a real problem and you have a real disconnect. And that's why the GOP, I believe, is running a terrible, if they win in 2024, if they hold the House and they win the Senate and they win the White House, it's because of Trump. It's not because of anything McCarthy or McConnell or any of those people did. It's because Trump was able to carry the America First mantle because they are running another bland campaign. If you look at Ronna McDaniel's tweets, it's like, my God, are we living in 1994 still? Like, those things are not moving the bucket. Any candidate who's knocked on doors, I could say it because I knocked on thousands of doors during my race. We worked our butts off. When you talk to the average voter, I mean, these people, they come to you and you could sense the disconnect and the anger in them. And, it's unfortunate what money can do to influence elections. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And that goes back to California because
let me ask
about this. And I have a little bit of an update on this because this is something the GOP is really great at. And Laura Loomer broke that story. I'll give her credit, man. She got that document. They didn't think she had the receipts. And she actually had the email with the proposed rule change. And so she posted it and it was like, oh, crap. Because, I mean, even after she posted it, they spent at least 24 hours still sticking to the lie that they weren't trying to do it. But then there was obviously a lot of outrage. Harmeet Dillon came out and said, well, I'm going to propose a new change that brings back the 50% threshold. And everybody kind of settled down thinking that they backed off. I'm here to tell you the California Republican Party has not backed off. They are actually still going out to chairs around the state, to delegates, and they are still pushing Jessica's version of the rule change. And people have to understand this. Just because Harmeet now has put forth her proposal, they're actually now going to vote on numerous proposals. Harmeet does not control the committees. The committees are filled with Jessica loyalists. The Rules Committee, the Executive Committee are Jessica loyalists, not Harmeet loyalists. And Harmeet Dillon's vote is not the make or break vote. So if Harmeet now flips and votes for going back to the 50% threshold, that's not going to sway the vote. If Jessica goes into these meetings and the California GOP, because I've heard people that are supposedly Trump supporters say, oh, I support Jessica's move. If she goes in and says, I want this rule change still, they're touting it as the more fair option. What they're telling delegates and what they're telling regional chairs and what they're telling county chairs is that, well, this actually makes your county and your voice bigger because your voters are getting a bigger say. It's more fair. And delegates are really confused. And at the end of the day, Jessica Patterson controls the committees. And if it gets to the floor of the convention in September, it will likely pass the rule, that is the total rule change eliminating the 50% threshold. Unless Team Trump comes out and is more proactive about this, I personally believe they need to say, we don't want this rule change, because delegates are confused. They don't understand it. It's a convoluted process. You had to explain it a billion times, and you got people that should understand it that say they don't, but I think they're just lying about it, to be honest with you. I do have a question for you, Rich, because Harmeet's modified proposal still isn't the original rule. It does change it a little bit. I don't know if you noticed that. So what it does is it reinstitutes the 50% threshold for the at-large delegates, okay? But it still gives proportional to district delegates. And I was going to ask you on this to clarify for me, because I still believe, reading the original one, that you can keep the original one where you can have, if you get 50% in the state, you get all the at-large and all the congressional delegates, right?
Let me read it.
Is that not allowed?
I actually have it right in my right here. All right, so I'm going to read the old rule, and some people bear with me if you've heard this before, but the original rule does not need changing, David. It perfectly qualifies. So it would say, if a candidate earns a majority of the statewide vote, congressional and at-large delegates are awarded on a winner-take-all basis. If no candidate receives a majority of the statewide vote, then delegates are awarded proportionally. A 20% threshold for the statewide vote is required to qualify for delegates. That is almost identical to several other states, to include Texas. Tennessee is very similar. Massachusetts is very similar. As long as you have, if you're before March 15th, as long as you have proportionality rules that kick in some way, and it can even be a hybrid, David. You could have it proportional at large, but still district 2-to-1 split.
Well,
that's what Jessica wants.
No, Jessica wants proportional all around. I mean, she wants
her original was split delegates at the district level, and
that one I believe is still an option. So that's what people.
I'm telling you, that's what she really wants, and I'm going to tell you why. Because
they're going to vote on that. They're going to vote on that one, and then they're going to vote on Harmeet. So those are the two options now. But Harmeet is still going to allow for proportionality with the district level. Yeah. But I still don't think you need that. I still think you can go with the provision where if you get 50%, you can get all the at-large and all the district ones. I don't
perfectly fine. There's nothing.
But they're still saying
no violation.
She did double down yesterday or 2 days ago and still say that they would lose their delegates.
It's a lie. It is a lie. Again, I'm sorry. At this point, I can't give somebody the benefit of the doubt if they're simply. Are you too dense to look at the rules of the other states? There are 15 states between Iowa and March 5th. They all, except two, have winner-take-all provisions to include. Some of them have 2/3 winner. Some of them have 50 majority. The RNC rules simply say that it has to be at least a majority for winner-take-all across the board or at large districts. They give you such wide latitude. Let me read a few more different ones, okay?
Yeah, so like Texas,
let me read Texas. That's what I was going to do. Yep. So all 162 delegates are bound, including 114, 3 per district, and 48 at-large statewide. Majority district leads receive all 3 delegates. If a candidate leads with a plurality and more than one meets the 20% threshold, the leader gets 2, second place gets 1. If no candidate meets the 20% threshold, the top 3 vote getters each receive a delegate. If the winning candidate earns a majority of the vote statewide, they earn all of the at-large delegates. All right, so Massachusetts. This one's a little bit funny, but they're all bound. If a candidate, just let me read it. If a candidate earns more than 50% of the statewide vote, all 40 delegates are awarded on a winner-take-all basis. If not, then you get into how they split it by districts and the at-large.
So in Massachusetts, you could have district one. Does Massachusetts have at-large delegates and district one?
Yes.
They have both.
But
so if you get 50% plus one in Massachusetts, you get the at-large and the district.
Right.
So that is what the original thing in California was. They are still saying, even in the revised plan that is going to be voted on, they're still saying you cannot have that. So
lies.
From what I understand is it looks like
so sad.
There's going to be a vote on two of these. It's going to start in the Rules Committee on, I believe, the 21st is the Rules Committee vote, and then it goes to the Executive Committee vote, assuming it passes both. So what it looks like is that there is no more option for there to be that type of Massachusetts vote anymore in California, because even Harmeet's proposed rule change is still going to go, because Trump would have to, under Harmeet's new rule, Trump would have to break 50% in every single congressional district to get all the votes. Whereas under the original rule that didn't need changing in the first place, if Trump breaks 50% in the state, he gets everything, and that's it. So they're saying that can't happen.
David, other states before March 15th have the same proposal. It's just that some of them are majorities, some of them are 2/3. One, I believe it's Minnesota. Let me just check and make sure. Minnesota, yes, it's Minnesota, is 85%. So some set really crazy high thresholds, but that's a minority. The rest of them are basic majorities. In Puerto Rico, by the way, that's on March 10th, even though that's not Super Tuesday, it doesn't matter. It's before March 15th. All 23 are bound. Candidates must meet a 20% threshold. They have a proportional allocation if somebody doesn't take a majority. If they do get a majority of the island-wide vote, they get all 23, and the proportional doesn't matter. This in the state of Georgia, they have a little bit crazy. But if a district winner receives 50 or more, all 3 delegates are bound to them. They just don't have. Actually, they may have a winner-take-all provision. And if it technically is possible, but it would be difficult. But
basically, Massachusetts should be getting penalized based on what I'm hearing.
They're lying. Here's Missouri. Yeah. Listen, again, at this point, there are so many different examples, and the rules are so obvious that if they're still continuing with that grift, it's an intentional lie. I can't say it out loud, and don't do it either. I know you've seen some. They're responding to questions by lying. So when the delegates are saying, okay, I need to know how I'm going to vote on this stuff. Let me ask you about this winner-take-all provision. So you're saying if we have a statewide winner-take-all provision, it would penalize us if we don't award at least the at-large or the districts based proportionately. They're responding with the lie when people are. So if you're a California delegate and you are confused right now, listen up and listen good. I have seen several of your questions that you have proposed, and I've seen the replies from the California GOP. They're lying to you. They are lying because these people sound legit confused, David. They really just don't know.
And the problem is
they are lying.
There's no longer the option now to keep the original unchanged provision. That is not part of the vote.
Yeah, because
Jessica's original rule change, which is the worst one, and then Harmeet's, which is at least keeps the at-large delegates if you get 50%, but still is going to obviously award, who knows, Trump is probably going to.
Why is that, David? Because they think DeSantis is going to win the concentrated, more liberal areas.
Yes.
People have to understand the way that both Harmeet's rules doing it too. It disproportionately favors liberal and moderate Republicans while it screws over the true base of the party.
This is what
your districts are larger, but you still get 3 delegates.
So they're actually, I think they actually have given up trying to explain it in the technical terms.
It's lying.
Now they're appealing to people's sense of fairness.
Yes,
so this is the company line. It isn't fair for one guy to get all the delegates, or basically what they're saying is, it isn't fair for you as the voters. Like if 5% or if, it's going to have to be 20. If 20% of people vote for Ron DeSantis, you should have 20% of the delegates. People are being unrepresented, right? You guys are having your voices silenced. So that's what they're now telling the delegates, is that this is actually disenfranchising you.
But their rules are the ones that disenfranchise, David, because they're not proposing that. What they're proposing is giving what they think the liberal areas, they think DeSantis is going to win. They're giving them an outsized share of the delegates. That's what they're doing, folks. Because again, let me bring up a congressional.
Miscalculated Central Valley.
I'm going to get the congressional district in California. I'm going to bring up the. Let me go to like 2022 on People's Pundit Daily. Let me get the House elections. I'm going to pull up California, and I'm going to show people exactly what I mean, David. All right, because people need to understand. By the way, they didn't give a damn, David, about the rule change when DeSantis was ahead and looked like he could actually
this primary date's been changed. I mean, people have known that the primary's been changed for years now, and nobody made a big deal about it. And Ron was actually, it was like 37, 34, I think, like Trump's 6 months ago, and nobody cared.
Trump's team is screwing up bad. I'll just say that. Let me put this up full so everybody can see it. All right. So, for instance, okay, there's Tom McClintock's district we were just talking about. All right. There are 173 Republicans in it, by the way, or 173,000 Republican votes for Tom McClintock. Here's the Bay Area. All right. Here's Ro Khanna. You have all of these areas. They
don't even have Republicans on some of the districts.
That's what I'm saying. But they're still going to get as many more delegates. They're going to get more delegates than the voters in CD5, the voters in Kevin McCarthy's district. Right. So here is David Valley. Here's Kevin McCarthy's district. There are 150,000 Republican votes in Kevin McCarthy's district. Yet you're going to get only 3 delegates, where there's like District 16, where there's really just 2 Democrats, and they're going to get 3, just as much as Kevin McCarthy's. And then the deal is these districts are very tightly combined. Look at 15. So whoever weighs the Bay Area, you're essentially going to get 3 times as many delegates as the conservative, as the candidate who won the Republican area.
Because that's where the population centers are. Yeah. So
that's right. They're trying to give 15,000 Republicans the ability to give DeSantis more delegates than 500,000 Republicans would give. You talk about fairness, David. This is the worst, and it's seen by people like me, the worst, least representative way to allocate delegates in your state. Period.
Well, it's a good way for if you're the CAGOP, to crush conservative candidates and America First candidates, because this is really what this is all about. And you did touch on it. You know, I can't speak. You know, I mean, Armit is very intelligent, you know, and for her not to get this totally confuses me. But she is friends with Jessica. And listen, she does do a lot of the work at the CAGOP, and the CAGOP does not like President Trump. I mean, Rich, you and I have known this.
They hate his guts.
They hate his guts. I mean, most of them won't even say his name. I can't even remember the last time I heard Jessica Patterson say the name Donald Trump. She despises Donald Trump. And they have been planning ways to crush candidates like me who I don't even know the reason they didn't like me. We did a lot of the work for them. They stole our stuff. That's how good our message was.
One email I read called you an ultra MAGA extremist. I'm serious.
Yeah. And so they view anyone associated. Literally, if you support the last Republican president of the United States, if you're a supporter of the last Republican president of the United States, the California GOP thinks you're basically some radical, crazy insurrectionist. That's how crazy this is. I mean, the California GOP wants to become this Democrat light option because they're terrified of giving voters what they really want. They just don't want to believe that voters believe these things. And it's not just the California GOP. This is the RNC too, across the country. Rich, you hear from voters all the time who are frustrated that they're not getting the kind of representation they believe, because the people at the top of the Republican Party, I say this all the time, Rich, you've studied history, you study political science, political realignments have happened in this country numerous times. Okay. And what we're going through right now is a political realignment where you have political parties that are fundamentally shifting. But in the past, most political parties have been smart enough to recognize a changing electorate and listen to their base because they want to win, because you have to listen to your base to win. We right now have a stubborn, arrogant Republican Party that says, no. You guys want those things. We don't. You're going to take what we give you. And they keep trying to do this. And eventually, I think if they do succeed in getting rid of Trump, it'll be the worst thing that ever happened to the Republican Party.
They're done, David.
They will regret it forever because voters will just say, you know what? That's it. We're done. They might not vote Democrat. People just won't vote. They'll fall out of the electorate because they will be so sour on the process. And that's already happened. That is why voters do not turn up when Trump is not on the ballot. I see Team DeSantis mocking these voters, right? These Trump voters that only show up for Trump. They're like, oh, you can't count on those people. It's a waste of time to go to those people. Guess what? Those people would show up if the party actually embraced Trump's vision. They're not showing up because when Trump's not there, they feel like the party is giving them candidates that, why would I go vote for that person? They're not the type of person I want to vote for. So it's really crazy. But I think Team Trump really has to be more proactive in this, especially in California, because it's going to pass the Rules Committee. It's either way, it looks like Trump's going to lose. He is not going to get all 169 delegates anymore in California.
Oh, he will lose a lot
because both proposals,
delegates.
Both proposals are going to take some delegates from him. So I think his team should just say, listen, we don't want any rule change. Stick with the original rule. Why are you doing this now? The poll just came out. PPIC just released another California poll this week. He is at 50%. I mean, it is clear Republicans in California want President Trump. Okay. And it's clear that Republican voters around the country want President Trump. I mean,
I don't understand. His team is really messing up here, buddy. They really are. It's the second PPIC poll. DeSantis fell 3 points. It went from Trump 26 to Trump 29. And they're messing up, buddy. I don't know what to tell anybody other than they are really screwing this up.
I don't know who the ultimate advisor is that makes the final call, but President Trump needs to look at his team. And if there are people that are not telling him the whole story, or there are people that are just being either they're hiding information from him, which is a fireable offense, or they're not smart enough to figure out what's happening, which is also a fireable offense. We cannot afford to take anything for granted. And Team Trump can't afford to take anything for granted, because this isn't just the Democrats that want to stop him. His own team wants to stop him. So he has to be on high alert. He has to get himself personally involved in this and say, you know what? I got to fill my staff with real loyalists. And I think that's one of the ultimate things that is unfortunate, is that there are a lot of people that are the most loyal to President Trump that struggle to get his ear and struggle to get his support. And we're at the point we need to back those people on, either on his staff, or, Laura Loomer is out there fighting a battle for him. And some people don't always agree with her tactics, but she is out there a bulldog for Trump, and they say terrible things about her and call her terrible names. And she has never once wavered in her support of him. And she blew the lid on this story. And it's a big story.
More than that. Look at the fundraising story. Look at the latest. She's had several of them. Look at the latest one, her tracking the money between that PAC. And I brought that up to people, that 85 million at least that they were touting did not get raised while he was a presidential candidate.
That's like John Duarte did against us, right? Remember when
that's a scam?
John Duarte sat across the table from me and made fun of me for putting my own investment in my campaign, and then got in the race and gave himself basically $400K of his own money, because he did it through himself, and then he had his family members donate, and then he went and bragged about how much money he raised. And they put him on the Young Guns right away, after they wouldn't let, they made everything difficult for us. But
it's a major problem for Trump, though, man, that he's not recognizing what you're saying. And I don't know how else to put it. If you're anyone first of all, if you were Team Trump and months ago, you thought that DeSantis was going to win, so he could hit 50 in California and take all the delegates, then you're not a good political advisor, because anyone.
Oh, and Rich, we actually sat in a talk together, and they were saying, well, 6 months ago, Team Trump might have wanted this rule change.
Come on, then you're bad at your job.
Yeah. Exactly. Either you're just really bad at your job, or you're being nefarious. Either way, you should be fired for both of those.
That's right.
Because you're incompetent, because we cannot go into an election. We cannot head into the general election with mistakes like this being made by Trump's team. He needs the best of the best, the loyalist of the loyalists. And some of the people who we think publicly that are his most loyal supporters really aren't behind the scenes. People have recognized that they make a lot of money being a Trump loyalist, but behind the scenes, they run to the parties with these Jessica Patterson type people, and those are their real friends. So President Trump needs to be on high alert. Look at the leaks that come from Mar-a-Lago and this thing. Somebody in there is not really on his side. And, listen, I will tell you this. Everything in California is about keeping Kevin McCarthy in power. And so I understand that Trump doesn't want to create more headaches for himself, but he needs to understand that, Kevin, basically it's got to be more of a keep your enemies closer thing at this point. But Kevin's doing harm to him behind the scenes. Okay. And, all you had to do is look at the midterms to look at it and see how bad it is. And now it's a little, we've given him a lot of power, but we have to play this smarter. And so the general election against Biden is going to be a dogfight. Rich, I wanted to ask you about this because I just saw this report. What do you think about this thing about top Democrats saying they don't think Biden's going to be on the ballot anymore? Because my thing is, as long as Biden was beating Trump in the polling, but now you even see some of these Democratic polls where Trump is winning, and I think this is going to start causing alarms for Democrats because they're not going to be able to pull the same shenanigans they did in 2020 just because some states have kind of gone back to their old voting habits. So Gavin Newsom is still running around out there, and I don't know. What do you think? Do you think there's truth to that now that the polls have really kind of shifted away from Biden?
I think the proof that there was truth to that is the weekend that the White House press corps and everyone else just went about face 180 on the Biden corruption stories and really began hammering them to the point where his people didn't expect it, started running off stages so they didn't have to deal with the questions. But here's a flaw in this thinking. As weak as Joe Biden looks, as many stories that he is corrupted by, we have polled everyone, even Michelle Obama, and Joe Biden is the strongest candidate against Donald Trump. This is the position that, ironically, David, they have put themselves in. They ignored all this man's faults. They built him up into something that he's not. And now that fiction is the strongest piece of fiction they could try to sell to the American public. Gavin Newsom gets crushed by Donald Trump. And it's more than that. People don't know Gavin yet. Trump is actually higher against Gavin Newsom than he is against Biden, even though he was beating them both. It was embarrassing. And the Inside the Numbers community knows it. Well, we have him up, guys, by 13. It was bad. And it's because it's hard to get Biden's from Delaware, Obama's from Illinois. It's hard to get someone from and this with Trump this was actually a challenge. It's hard to get someone from the Northeast or California elected president because they're just seen as so different, and Gavin embraces that I'm a white West Coast liberal, and black voters don't like him. They don't those black voters who knew him didn't like him. Trump's black support was I have to go back and look, David, but I want to say he got 15 against Biden and 22 against Gavin Newsom. So it was literally black voters saying, oh, no, not that.
I think Gavin in the South particularly will have a really tough
Georgia.
time.
Think about that, buddy. In Georgia.
And that's what I think they're struggling with. Like you said, they made a mistake. They built up Biden to be this guy, and he's not. And even though he's weakening now against Trump, they really don't have other options.
Where are they going to go?
I do think that they think Gavin's going to be able to schmooze. Listen, I do. As much as I dislike Gavin Newsom, I will say this. People do underestimate Gavin Newsom a lot. He is very good at smiling for the cameras and schmoozing. He's younger. He's got that, he's kind of got a Bill Clinton air about him, a lot more radical than what Bill Clinton was when he first ran for president. But he has that kind of charisma. He is a kind of guy who can fool a lot of people. So he does scare me just because I know, I can sense a good con guy when I see one. And he's good, man. He is very swift. He's good at dodging issues. The media will obviously coalesce around him. But at the end of the day, I do think his policies and the things, California's a mess, dude. I can't tell you how bad it is. It's so sad. It really is so sad because it's hard.
It was the Golden State, David. It was the Golden State. It was
San
beautiful.
Francisco was a place people would want to go and visit. And now, just yesterday, a brewery has been open in San Francisco for 115 years. They're closing down. It's a ghost town. It's disgusting. I've had a small store in a good town. Clovis, California, a good town. I've been broken into 3 times. What has happened to this state is just so sad. And I think at the end of the day, that's going to be enough to sink Gavin. But he does concern me.
Could you imagine the ads, David, with the tents and the shit all over the sidewalk and the needles?
But I think the McCain wing, Yeah, I do believe this though, like the Ken Cusinellis of the world and the Ken Griff. I mean, even probably Ken Griff.
Would go
Those people
for
are going to fund the
Gavin.
money. They're going to fund money to Gavin, dude. The McCain wing of the party.
They are.
Look what they did to Carrie Lake.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look what they did to Carrie Lake. I mean, people want to knock Carrie Lake. I believe, I mean, listen, they shut down voting machines on election day. Okay, malfunctions like that don't happen. But look what they did to her. They funded her opponent. They ran ads against. It's hard enough to beat Democrats when you're fighting Democrats, but when you have your own party spending money against you, what they did to Doug Mastriano, who is a good guy, he is a good man, he's a veteran, he served this country. They literally gave him $0 and actively donated tens of millions against him.
He raised $3 million, David,
and then blamed him. And then blamed him for not being able to run a campaign in a state. Listen, I went to college in Pennsylvania. It's a huge state. If you don't have a lot of money running for governor, it's going to be really hard to get out there. It's just crazy times. And I really do believe, you and I have mentioned this, the past appearances. Everybody says cliche, most important election coming up. 2024 to me really is, because you have two parties that almost want to be one at this point. They just want to be these elitists ruling the country. And then you have this Trump movement where it's really about giving power back to the American people and doing the things the American people want. People are fed up with politicians on both sides. They're tired of, hey, you told us, you tell us you can't have childcare stuff, but then you could send $100 billion to Ukraine. Or you tell us you can't do this. Veterans can't go see whatever doctors they want, but we can have all this. People are just fed up with it. Our roads, I mean, California, we pay the highest gas tax in the country. It's supposed to go to the roads. Our roads are abysmal. So it's
by the way, Republicans help push that gas tax. Let's get real. And then they pretend like they're there to repeal it. And you have, I don't want to, shame anybody here, but you know the people I'm talking about. And then they don't show up for the vote. Kevin Kiley tries to get the vote again. They make up excuses. It was one of the most disgraceful, pathetic things I've ever seen. Democrats would never do that. Never do that. And so no chance.
It's just the biggest thing I think, I really believe President Trump needs to run a slate of candidates, even if it pisses off Kevin McCarthy, even if it pisses off Mitch McConnell, because when he wins again, he needs those people to do the thing. His Agenda 47 that he's pushing out there, that is not going to get done unless he gets loyalists in Congress to push it through for him, because the leaders like McCarthy, they might say they support it, but he won't put it up for a vote. It'll go just like the Merrick Garland impeachment. What it'll happen, it'll go to a committee and it'll die there. So Trump needs these people. It was not Democrats that stopped the border wall when Trump was president.
Damn right.
Republicans. Republicans told us they did not have $5 billion for a border wall. Those same Republicans are still there, most of them, and they're sending hundreds of billions to Ukraine. So Trump can't have that again. So he's going to have to draw his line in the sand and say, because this is his last stand. Rich. If he wins, he can't run again. If he loses, he's not going to run again. This is his last stand. It shouldn't be about being friendly with McCarthy or McConnell and the RNC anymore, because this is the last stand.
David, he could go to jail. He needs people who have his back. They could put him in a prison I said it on Bannon and people were laughing when I said it this morning, but it's true. He's been charged. He's got like 3 times more charges than John Gotti had in his RICO case. That's how ludicrous this is.
And I saw they're probably going to hit him with more for January 6th, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And so you're right.
He can't afford to mess around. And his voters, this is something I've been saying, and I'm not, trying to piss anybody off. I just tell the truth no matter who I piss off. He owes that to his voters. They stick with him. They stick with him. They stick with him. He owes that to his voters to have a Andrew Jackson-like resurgence where he says, these are my guys. We're coming in to take it down. And that is no less than what the American public deserves at this point.
And I think
what they need, because you think Kevin McCarthy's going to dismantle the deep state with him?
No,
with
he's part of it.
Losers?
He's part of it.
John Duarte is going to jump up and say, let's defund the FBI.
John Duarte is out there, John Duarte's out there trying to get amnesty for every illegal in the country. So, because he needs people to work at his nursery. But, You said the same thing. He owes it to the people, and he owes it to the people that have taken buzzsaws for him and taken shots from him. His loyalist supporters have been shunned by their own party.
Lost their jobs.
They have been kicked to the curb. They've had their families demeaned. They've been called radicals. They've been called extremists. They've been blacklisted by everybody, and he owes it to those people who continue to go to bat for them, for him to also go to bat for them, because it's going to help both sides. Like you said, those people aren't going to stop. I mean, listen, Republicans could have stopped the Mueller investigation. They didn't. They could have. They didn't.
They went out there, David. They said, "Oh no, Robert Mueller, such a straight shooter."
Oh, I know.
Here's me and other people who know Bob Mueller for years. This is the guy who let innocent men rot in jail because for murder they didn't commit because he didn't want everyone to find out the FBI was working with Whitey Bulger. All right. This is a guy who used 9/11. The country's terrified not to do what is his job and prevent terrorist attacks. Oh, no. His number one priority was to get a massive surveillance program on the books before somebody wised up and came out of their fear coma and decided it was a bad idea that probably violated the Fourth Amendment. These people, who was it? Chris Christie, even Newt. Sorry, Newt, you did it. Robert Mueller, such a wonderful guy. Devin Nunes, that's the one thing I give him credit for. Even Ron DeSantis, by the way. Can we just stop for a second? Ron DeSantis said that Robert Mueller should be allowed to do his job. All right? So let's get real.
Mitch McConnell was on television trying to get Trump to appoint Merrick Garland as FBI director after he fired Comey. It's one big club. And you could knock Trump's personnel decisions, some of the ones, but you have to understand this. Trump, on election night, Trump thought he was going to win. I think his closest people thought he was going to win, but nobody kind of else did. So his team, there were a lot of people on his team that probably didn't think he was going to win. He went into this thinking, wow, I did this for the Republican Party. I pulled off the impossible. These people are going to embrace me. They're going to be on my side. And what really happened is you had people that pretended to do that after, Donald, we can't believe you won. We're so grateful that you did this for us. You gave us control of all three branches. We're going to do everything for you. But really behind the scenes, they were like, we can't deal with this guy. We're going to sabotage him, and we're going to tell him we're with him, and we're going to give him recommendations that we can control. And it's the same thing that Kevin's doing now with advisors on Team Trump. You have advisors on Team Trump that are supposed Trump loyalists, but deep down, they're actually loyalists to Kevin McCarthy. Okay. And they're giving him advice, not necessarily to protect him, but to protect Kevin. And to keep Kevin in power, because if Kevin goes down, they got nowhere else to go. They have no more check on Trump. So, it's crazy, man. And
all this while you're saying all this, David, and Alan, who I've known of Alan Lichtman for years. He's a guy who's like, I believe he predicted Gore would win. That was the only thing he was wrong about. But he's got a model that goes against not goes against, but competes with my old model, competes with the primary model. Anyway, even Alan Lichtman is coming out now and trying to say, because he's explaining his election model, and he's saying no candidate, like Donald Trump is the Republican nominee. Like historically, nobody has a chance. He is now the mainstream of the Republican Party. And meanwhile, we're having this conversation about all these other idiots who just for 6 years, actually longer now, David. Remember when Paul Ryan, after 2016, went to the microphone and said he heard a voice. He heard a voice nobody heard. Imagine if that idiot, along with all these other idiots, decided to embrace the movement, embrace his voters, embrace the policies, instead of doing everything imaginable under the sun to create this identity crisis the Republican Party is now in, because the voter doesn't know who to trust.
Exactly. If they did that, I'll tell you this, what would have happened? You would have probably had almost a permanent Republican majority, because you would have had this coalition that the Democrats would not have been able to compete with, because the Democrats have always had their bread and butter with the working class. And if the Republican Party, because a lot of these working class voters are socially conservative, but I say this all the time, at the end of the day, a lot of people really vote for their job and their pocketbook and their family's livelihoods. So the Democrats have always played on this blue collar thing. People are starting to recognize that's bullcrap. But by fighting Trump's America First blue collar populism, the Republican Party gave those people weariness of fully embracing them. If they had done it, those people would already be permanent Republican voters. They would have showed up in 2018. They would have showed up in 2022. Even without Trump on the ballot, you would have gotten those votes. Now you're trying to convince these suburban people who now lean more Democrat. I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah.
People can get mad at me all you want. Suburban voters are no longer reliable for the Republican Party. They are far more reliable for Democrats than they ever will be for Republicans again, these upper middle class suburban voters, because they're highly educated. They're going to these colleges where they're getting indoctrinated with all this liberal crap, and they just lean more to the left. And the GOP is still focused on winning them back. And to win them back, you have to compromise the values that your base wants. So it's not a winning formula long term.
And hilariously, Carrie Lake tonight is hosting an event in Des Moines where Trump is way ahead. It's called,
more than
the restaurant is called Mad Meatball. And she's there. I swear to God it is. She's there to answer questions for Donald Trump. Again, one of his most stalwart supporters, and the strategy on behalf of the DeSantis campaign was to attack her. She is behind Donald Trump, the most popular Republican in the state of Arizona. I've seen 4 internal polls, dude, from Democrats, from Republicans, five now. And every single one of them showed the same, that she, among Republican voters, well, number one, that she is a strong Senate candidate, but also that Donald Trump is the most popular Republican, like a politician, whatever you want to call him, figure. And Carrie Lake is number 2. DeSantis is like 4 or 5. You know, so I just don't understand the mindset, man. It was totally stupid. But
no,
it's 159. Oh, go ahead, and then we'll wrap it up.
Imagine having that much money given to your campaign with all these PACs and running it so poorly. It's just been really mind-boggling, because for so long the argument was with DeSantis. I mean, you've heard it. Everyone heard DeSantis. You can have DeSantis because he's Trump without the Trump. Now. That is totally gone. Now they openly mock MAGA. They openly mock America.
They want him in jail.
Yeah, now they're even justifying the charges. Well, he should have given back those documents. He should have, it's crazy. I've never seen anything like it. They're attacking people that are popular. How are you going to win those votes? And Republican voters, at least the base, is smart. They've been kicked in the teeth for decades. And I think, unfortunately in this country, a lot of people have given up on the electoral process. I mean, it really is sad. I mean, and it's not hard to imagine why our government is lying to us every day. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. All they do is make fun of Russia and Putin. I keep saying this to people. You could criticize me for saying this, but what is different the way our government behaving right now than Putin and his government behaves? Because
there is no difference.
To their own
there is no difference. And let me just read it. No difference. And Putin is more popular than any other Western figure who has held the popularity for that long. I mean, I really come to the conclusion they're jealous of Vladimir Putin. That's why they hate Vladimir Putin so much, David. They're jealous of him. Nobody has an approval rating that high. He doesn't need to rig elections. He wins them outright without, he's so popular, you wouldn't need to. The last time he won an election, I actually decided, and Barnes, and I was like, Barnes, I'm polling Russia. I can do it. I got the reach to do it. I want to poll Russia, and I'm going to research other people who have been doing it and do it well. And I'm going to see whether or not there are any there's any merit to these claims that he would steal an election. David, at that time, his approval rating was like 70%. There was no reason to steal an election. You don't need to.
I think we've made a mistake.
I hate him for it.
We have helped make him more popular in the Russian people's eyes.
Yeah.
Because the West has made a horrible miscalculation. They have isolated the Russian people.
Prigozhin played them again.
We have demonized them for everything, and things that, the 2016 election, right, was just the biggest hoax of all, right? We said, Russia screwed over America's election, knowing it wasn't true. And so those people, to them, it's Russia against the world. That's how a lot of the Russian people feel. And they view Putin as the one who's the only one is standing against the world for them. And that's why he's so popular. We did this. The West has miscalculated that. Everything going on with Ukraine, it's not going to lead to anything good. But to go back to a lot of the stuff before we, go, because I got the baby getting ready. But
I do want to wrap it up soon anyway.
I would love to run again. If Donald Trump called me and told me to run for an office, I'm doing it. But I think that Team Trump needs to be more proactive in things like this, because the heat was on after Loomer broke that article, and Kevin McCarthy and his people said, "Oh, Trump, don't worry, we're not really going to do this. We'll propose this new rule that actually has still the winner take all threshold, but they're not going to tell him he's still going to lose delegates no matter what." Now, he's got to wipe his hands of this. It's time to be line in the sand. This is war. I'm fielding my guys. I don't care if you're mad, Kevin. Let's go to bat. Let's do this. And because when he wins again, he needs to dismantle the deep state. He needs to clean house. And if you remember, the one Team DeSantis runs on this all the time, and I'm tired of listening to it. And you could tell me I'm a liar all you want, but I listen to Republicans say this. If Trump had fired Anthony Fauci, Republicans would have voted to impeach him. Many of them said it. So this argument that, Trump kept Fauci around, he could have fired him, they would have impeached him.
DeSantis had his own Fauci, whom he promoted. So, I mean, he had somebody who was in total agreement with Anthony Fauci. The bottom line is there's a reason why this COVID line of attack didn't work, David. It's because it's not true. Donald Trump had said on March 20th that the cure cannot be worse than the disease. Yep. And at that time, I'm sure the Trump campaign will get them if they have to. But I know I brought this specific example up quite a bit. Family owned. They're like a vape bar, but it's more than that. It's college town. It's like a place of community where people went. They wanted to open up with social distancing. They were trying. The governor constantly threatened them. Constantly threatened them with fines. Eventually, they went out of business. There were tons of bars that were, having the same issues. He told the kids on spring break to go back and come back. Maybe you can come back next year. He then decided he was going to parade the oldest World War II veteran in the country on TV, on Fox and Friends, the day the Pfizer shot came out, and that dude was dead a few weeks later. All right, so there's a reason why nobody bought it. It's not true. It's not. Everyone got fooled.
My uncle passed. My uncle passed away unexpectedly during COVID back in Connecticut. I flew home. We couldn't even have a wake for him, let alone a funeral.
So
there were 5 of us in a room. And the one thing I remember is there was only one politician that was on the television at the time saying to open up, and that was Trump. He was criticizing, he said, we'll try this first 2 weeks of 15 days to slow the curve. Then he quickly realized that what their plan was that, hey, this is going to go on forever. And remember when he made that tweet, liberate Michigan, and the media went nuts. And even a lot of Republicans went nuts. Oh my God, this guy wants to kill everybody. And so I remember Trump fighting before no local politicians, very few. Let's put it at that. There might have been
my wife worked for the state at the time, David.
Handful across the country.
Yeah.
But most local officials, state officials, U.S. congressmen, you can count them on your hand how many spoke up with Trump. And many of them said they would impeach him if he fired Fauci because he threatened to fire him. And there were news stories, well, impeach him. And Mitt Romney would have voted to impeach him easily.
Oh, my God, of course.
If he had fired Fauci.
Well, so he's finally lost it. He's finally lost it. If we don't impeach him, it'll have to be time to invoke the 25th Amendment. He's finally lost his mind. And that's the way it would have gone. Let me just
I just want to say, too, another thing with these DeSantis people, I've never seen a campaign that wants to tell people, well, we're so smart. That's why we support this guy. And all you stupid people are too dumb to realize how great. How are you going to
I have Hillary Clinton. Joe Biden.
You're right. Yeah. But it's crazy.
Democrats
it's one of the worst run campaigns. The launch was a disaster. Anyone who takes a statistics class and knows that when you hit the 50% in polling in races like this, it's significant. Like every candidate in a race for politics wants to hit that 50% mark because they know how significant it is. And so this notion that it's so early, it's like Trump is a known commodity.
Yeah.
He's not going to lose 30 points.
Will I change my mind? That's the bottom line.
Well, and now in head-to-heads, because before it was like, well, wait till we get him head-to-head. Now Trump is still up 30 points in head-to-head polling.
Plus.
Yeah.
And let me read this. Alan Lichtman, famous for correctly predicting the outcome of every U.S. presidential election since '84, and I was right, barring 2000, says Donald Trump is now the mainstream in the Republican Party and no other GOP presidential hopeful stands a chance of winning the nomination. The American University professor, himself a fierce critic of Trump, said that ex-MAGA rival Ron DeSantis was an abysmal candidate who lacks Trump's appeal and personal charm. Lichtman was clear that other candidates, sometimes described as the standard bearers of the Republican mainstream, have no chance and we're no longer mainstream. You ready? Quote, here's another mistake that all the commentators make. They pose Donald Trump against the so-called Republican mainstream. Supposedly, Chris Christie is a mainstream Republican, right? Wrong. Donald Trump is the mainstream.
Exactly.
He is the new mainstream. And he just broke. And then after that, he goes into like,
yeah, I mean, they would
it
say
is never going back to the party of Paul Ryan, Karl Rove, and Jeb Bush. He said this is the end, and you're going to love this. The only way a DeSantis or a Mike Pence or a Tim Scott could possibly become the Republican nominee is if the Republican National Committee somehow strips Trump of the nomination, possibly following federal convictions, and that there is no legal bar to Trump for running for president regardless, even if he was behind bars. So Barnes is right about that. And I wish he would have added, like, what if they did? Like, because Lichtman's a smart guy. What if they did take him off the ballot? David, that party is over.
Oh, it would be, it would be the end. I mean, and it's unfortunate. It's not just the party, it'd be the end of the country because the Democrats would take full power and they would just destroy everything. That's why this is so important. And I do think that's why they need DeSantis or whoever, whether it's, because now you hear Ken Griffin might be funneling money to Tim Scott. They're desperate to get as many delegates, even if it's a handful, to somebody other than Trump as they can, because they do, I believe, depending on what happens legally, they are going to pull some crap at the convention.
Of course they are.
You quoted this before. Ted Cruz went up. Trump had the nomination locked up, and Ted Cruz still told delegates to vote your conscience, right?
Clinched.
This time, they're going to say, we cannot nominate somebody who is either convicted or who has been charged with, because he might be charged with sedition by then. They're going to say that, and they're going to try and change rules to say it's an unprecedented situation. We are giving delegates the permission to vote their conscience this time and do what's best for the Republican Party. And so there's going to be, that's why Trump needs to be on high alert. That's why he needs the best team out there. That's why he cannot have people that are either not telling him all things or making stupid decisions or are not smart enough to realize how something's bad for him. Because every advisor on Team Trump should only be acting in his best interest, not worried about anything else. And it's crazy. And so you're right. They aren't mainstream. They would say Asa Hutchins is a mainstream Republican. Did you see that picture he posted in Iowa? There were like 4 people in the room. That's what the GOP doesn't understand. I can't,
everyone's bombing at this event today. We've been talking, but there have been clips that when you get off, go check out the clips.
Oh, I know.
They're terrible. Even Tim Scott fell on his face.
I just watched the Asa Hutchinson one. It's so bad, dude. It's like, it's like, these are, I don't know how these elites, I can, because these elites at the top of the Republican Party are just so out of touch with Rich, we say it. Quite frankly, they're repulsed by the new base of the Republican Party. The people Trump brought into the party are not the type of people, old school, country club, Greenwich, Connecticut, from Connecticut, Republicans want to associate with. They don't like those people. And so they believe mainstream Republicans are their George Bush types. That's not anymore. And you're right. And if they succeed at running those candidates, then the Democrats are going to have full control. The whole country will end up like California, and it'll be a mess. And so this really is the last battle, but the president needs to really go to war with everyone. It's him versus the entire political establishment, Democrat, Republican alike.
Only 28% in Iowa identified as a traditional Republican. That's it. 28%. And I'm not sure that if you showed that to the decision makers at the GOP, they would just scoff at it and ignore it. They would ignore it. So I've never seen a party that willingly ignores data. The one thing you could say about Democrats is they look at data and then they come up with ways to trick voters into thinking that they're agreeing with Republicans. Just ignore it. They get their fake pollsters or show them Alan Fung is going to win by 6 points, and it makes them feel all nice and warm inside. That's what they do. And then they dismiss pollsters and then steal their data like they did to you. And then their messaging. Exactly. I mean, literally, your Rhino opponent stole your slogan.
Oh, they stole everything. Nickname, slogan, data. They took it all. They just had more money. I mean, Kevin dumped in a ton of money, and you're able to do that. And now he's in Congress voting the complete opposite of everything he ran on. So it's just crazy. And yeah, so I'd love to be on the ballot. If the president ever called me, I'd do it in a heartbeat, because I would love to be there to dismantle the deep state, because this is about saving this country. I mean, look, our government is so abusive. It's disgusting. I mean, the framers, if they were alive today, they would be appalled at what's happened to the republic they created. They would be appalled. They would be so angry with us. Yeah, they'd be embarrassed. And as a student of history, it's unfortunate, because this is the best country in the world. And if we keep going down this road, nothing is going to separate us from all those other countries we mock and make fun of. And, you know, it's just so ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, you know, the president, he's who we need. I mean, there's just no other. We're not going to settle for Trump light. I mean, Ron, yeah. I just get so frustrated because I can't handle
conversation. The psychology of this campaign was just so bad. You're not going to ever settle for a light version of a beer that you love the best. I mean, it's that simple. And they made a terrible mistake thinking people stopped liking the taste of that beer. And that, but by the way, their pollster told them that. Now they look like fools. But I do have to get out of here. It's 2:14.
Yeah, so do I. I got to take the baby. So thanks for having me on.
Tell everybody, though, where to follow you, you know?
Yeah, go on Twitter at David Giglio CA. It's the same on Getter and Truth. And yeah, give me a follow and you know, start pushing out there. We got to get people around. We got to fight. Don't fall for the nonsense. Keep the faith, because Trump's going to need all of us to show up and vote in large numbers. Don't take anything for granted. And if the president watches this, you know, go to bat for the people that are going for you. We want to be there fighting for you when you win again. I would love to be there, making sure you dismantle the deep state and leave a legacy that people are going to talk about for 100 years, because we need to change what's the trajectory of this country, and the American people are counting on us. I saw the concern in people's eyes. I've seen people forgotten. And listen, that's one thing I will say this. The best video, if you haven't seen it, I saw somebody make this analysis. Trump doesn't pretend. Trump is, he connects with people. Look what that Dairy Queen video, right? Where he's like, what the hell is a blizzard? He doesn't pretend to be what everybody is. Okay, I got to dress like I'm from Iowa. I got to pretend to be a farmer. He's just himself. And voters think it's great. And it's funny.
And 16, I'll never forget with the butter. He was like, oh, I'm sure you love it. He's like, oh, is this going to kill me? He's like,
yeah, and you have other candidates. I mean, remember, like, look at Kamala Harris, who changes her accent every time she goes somewhere.
Yeah,
it's an authenticity you can't replicate, and I think that's the biggest thing that people misunderstood about why Trump has this connection with voters. So, you have a good one. I'll see you soon. Everybody, stay good. It's going to be like 115 degrees here tomorrow. So,
well, keep that Pete Brooksy out of the sun. Give him a big old wet one for me.
Dude, and if you have kids, I'm telling you, he's too big. I don't like it.
It happens. I told you it's going to happen so fast. It's just going to like blow right by you, and you're always like, "What the hell happened?" It's the way life.
Because now he moves around like. So I bring him to the store still, and I feel almost bad because he just wants to move around, and it's like, what happened to you? I remember when it was just eat, sleep, and you know.
Yeah. Wobble.
All right. Tell Laura I said hello, and thanks everybody for listening.
All right, all the best, David. Thanks for joining us, buddy. David Giglio, everybody. David Giglio. I'm telling you, he'd do it, right? I told you on Locals I would just ask him the question. There you have it. He'll do it. I don't know what the hell happened to Tom McClintock's vote record. I mean, if you're David, you do have some choices, though, because like, you know Duarte is going to lose because you know the district, and he's not going to win those Hispanic voters that stayed home. The electorate will not be 70% white, and turnout will not be 50%. You know that's not going to happen during a presidential election. You've aligned yourself against Donald Trump, so you're likely, very unlikely to get those Hispanic voters who are orphaned by the Democratic Party. Although you could just, then on the other hand, you have Tom, who was just a fantastic Republican congressman, if you're a Republican, who has completely gone off the rails. And now he's just Kevin's like little, like, I don't know, get the leash out. He's like, well, Kevin walking around the little poodle, Tom McClintock, who, needed Donald Trump's endorsement to stop Nathan Magzig's rise, and then went ahead and did this. So there's really opportunity. I think whoever gets endorsed by Donald Trump in McClintock's district is going to win. I don't care how long McClintock's been a congressman. That's going to happen. So you have some options there. But the president's been very quiet. No endorsement for Bernie Moreno. No endorsement for all these other people. He's got a lot going on. But time is moving. And what are you going to do? Win the presidency and get there and have a bunch of Kevin McCarthy's yes you to death? He's not dismantling deep state. That's not happening. Folks, that is not happening. That is a joke. The whole Congress, 70 votes against Ukraine. That's it. When if I polled the Republican Party right now, the vast majority are going to say no. They're just not represented. Something's got to come to a head here. It has to be. He is his little biatch now. He really is. I don't know how the hell that happened, and it's one of the most tragic things ever. Because I know he's a nice guy. They must have just somehow found out how to get him by the short and curlies. And I know. I'm trying to explain it to you. And that's so tragic. So damn tragic. All right. Listen, Iowa poll is up on Locals. Share it far and wide. Check it out. It's really cool. I'm going to make a page with it because I got some other graphics. So I'm going to start doing that. And then this way you don't have to, there's going to start being like press releases. I just want to give it to Locals first. But there's going to start, not press releases, but there's going to be like a blog post on Big Data Poll every time we have a poll. We stopped doing that a while ago. I think I'm going to wind up maybe a day or two after giving it to Locals, doing that, and then having a lot more about it. We're also trying to get an API from Real Clear Politics. We have one with Decision Desk. We love Decision Desk. And by the way, all of that stuff's going to be tailored to PPD, People's Pundit this year. So all of the Decision Desk maps and everything is going to look like our stuff. It's going to be cool. But we're trying to get one from Real Clear Politics because we have a delegate map that we're going to basically pull in the latest average and then based on that average generate delegate projections for you. All right. So there's a lot of cool stuff coming up. So again, join Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. Sign up over there any day now. It was really supposed to happen in July. They may have done it already. It will be increased. We started obviously very low. Everyone else has been grandfathered, like Viva Barnes, that all Scott Adams, all those guys on Locals have increased. We have not, but we have to, considering just the flat cost of all the stuff that we do that others don't. They don't have products that cost that much money. That's just the truth. All right. So sign up over there. It's going to be a fun ride. Iowa's cool. This will be the format that we release polling in from now on. You'll always be able to get the crosstabs in the bottom. One more time, just to show you guys before I go, because I know I got to go here. We all probably do. But let me just show you a real quick kind of like tutorial. So here's Iowa, the map of Iowa. Let me make it big so you can see. We did this because we want like basically the most transparent polling ever done. Every dot is an interview. Groupings are because there's so many interviews within that certain area. There are concentration centers. So you could click on it and look at every single one that was picked. For instance, when it's black, outlined in black, then you'll know you have it. You can scroll down and see every single choice that was made, or you can zoom in and you'll see, boom, there goes another interview, popped right off, and you can look at the interviews like that. For the most part, I don't know what we're going to do with this big slate of people. It should whittle down, but it looks ugly. And they're frankly, like, look at somebody like Doug Burgum. I mean, for crying out loud, look at that. He's got, I see one. I see one over here. Here's Doug. I mean, that's it. Asa. Where's H's? I literally, I probably have to zoom in to even see where. Iowa City. I can see it. There's a couple of dots in Iowa City. But again, nothing. Basically nothing. It's a pain in my butt. This is a basic methodology statement, not even methodology statement, just a basic disclosure statement. Some people say methodology. Here's where the crosstabs are. Here's where people can embed it in their website. You can download it as an image. This, again, remember, is the raw representation. It is not weighted and then replotted. This is the raw representation. Crosstabs are where you get the weighted results. Okay. So that's how we're going to do it from now on. I'm probably going to wind up taking this, putting it in a big format on big data poll after I give it to locals, and we'll have more commentary on it, basically maybe a statement here and there from me, but for the most part, a couple of graphics. This is what's going on. Here's where everyone's support is. Click on the crosstabs, check them out. All right, so I think that's on. Again, transparency is a big deal. That's number one. And then number two, picture says 1,000 words. Graphics really tell you 1,000 different things without having to read a detailed or complicated crosstab. You could just look right at that graphic and say, okay, I know what's going on, All right. So again, thanks everybody. Have a safe weekend. I will see you. Thank you, Lisa. Love you too. We'll see you tomorrow. I think I'm going to be doing the Don Smith show at some point if I can swing it. He's doing like a little special. He's been doing that once in a while. But in the meantime, keep an eye on locals and keep an eye out on social media. And I will see you guys out there. All the best, folks. Have a safe weekend. A great one, but a safe one. All the best.